Enfield Town Council, Monday, March 4th, excuse me. A little optimistic May. 7 o'clock. Prayer, Joe Muller, Councilor Muller.
Dear Father, first let me say thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for the many and abundant blessings. I'm asking that you would gracefully grant us the wisdom to govern amid conflicting interests and issues of our time, a sense of welfare and true needs of our people, a keen thirst for justice and rightness, confidence in what is good and fitting, and the ability to work together in harmony, even when there's honest disagreement. I pray for the agenda set before us today. Please give us assurance of what would please you and what would benefit those who live and work in and around our beloved town of Enfield. Amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Councilor Muller. Here. Deputy Mayor Suzanne.
Here.
Councilor Ungary. Councilor Arnone.
Here.
Councilor Bosco.
Here.
Councilor Sakala.
Here.
Councilor Crissati.
Here.
Councilor Davis.
Here.
Councilor Denny.
Here.
Councilor Fall.
Here.
Mayor Ludwig.
Here.
There's 10 members present. No, one is absent.
Item number 4, fire evacuation announcement. We have the doors right in the back of the hall. Please orderly go left or right out to the back, or please go out the doors to our left. The audience is right. Go out those first doors down the stairs, hook around, and go right out the doors to the parking lot in case of a fire. Item number 5, minutes of the preceding meeting, regular meeting, February 20th, 2018. Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Councilor Falk, seconded by Councilor Denny. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor by show of hands? Against? Abstentions? We have 9 in favor, 0 against. Item number 6, we have a few special guests tonight. Our first will be from Kite, and I apologize in advance if I ruin your name. Chris Gameau and Leanne Bellew? Bolio. I was close.
Chris couldn't be here tonight. I'm actually Melanie Anderson.
Hi, Melanie. Welcome.
Also work for Kite.
Thank you.
Hello, Melanie.
So is the red button, if it is red's
red
on,
button?
there you go. Yep.
It's-
So welcome.
Thank you very much.
Floor's
Thank
yours.
you. I am Leanne Bolio. I am the chairperson for Kite. And as Melanie said, Chris Gameau, who is the coordinator for Kite, is not with us tonight. There's been a death in her family. And so I'm very proud to introduce to you Melanie Anderson, who is one of our new program coordinators who will be speaking with me this evening. So we are very grateful that you've given us this time. I know that you have a big agenda, and we'll be as brief as we possibly can. For those of you that may not be familiar with us, Kite is an early childhood collaborative, and as a collaborative, we are made up of partners from across our community, both public and private, parents, professional, all of whose work centers around the priority of young children, the health, the well-being and the education of young children and their families. There are 3 focus areas of our work: health, family engagement and support, and early care and education. I think one of the most important reasons why we wanted to come before you tonight is that we wanted to be able to publicly thank the town council. Together with the school district, you've supported Kite for almost 20 years. We are a collaborative that has been around for a long time and has really viewed and supported the history of young early education in our community. I hope that what you see tonight or what you hear tonight is that your support has helped us to leverage some incredible experiences into our community. And over the past 4 or 5 years, again, the support, and I have to tell you, it's very unique in terms of the kind of support that we get from our public partners, has also allowed us to leverage some exciting and important grant opportunities into the community of Enfield. We know that all of you have been supportive. We would like to especially acknowledge the support of the Department of Social Services, Dawn Homer-Boothjet and her staff have been, and Pam Brown before her, have been instrumental, not just in providing background support, but active participation in the work that we've done, again, for young children. So I would like to introduce Melanie, who's going to share with you some information on a grant that we came to you about probably 2 or 3 years ago, just to give you an update on the work that we've been doing.
All right, so I'm going to be talking about the Enfield Plays On campaign. The main goals of our Play campaign are to inform, incorporate, and increase play in the community. Enfield Plays On, with the generous support of the Hartford Foundation for Public Giving, has been able to provide over 20 play events over the past year. We have hired and trained play ambassadors to learn different skills and teach parents why play is important and what the different activities they're doing at the events, what they learn from these activities. Some of the events that we've done over the past year are the Build a Snowman event on the town green. We have done a campfire this summer. There was a Let's Fly a Kite event on the town green, and we did Bike Bash last year. And most recently, our space event that had over 300 attendees. Right now, we're busy planning a lot of events for the upcoming year, and we're very busy planning events that are going to be held on the Week of the Young Child and Enfield Unplugged Week this April. Some of these events are a sensory event at Stowe, a dance party on the green, Bike Bash 2018, and a lot more. We're going to list all these events on our website as well as our Facebook page. Another great thing we've done with Enfield Plays On is our summer playcation kits. Last year we gave out 200 kits, and with these, parents would check our Facebook page every day and we'd list a new playful idea, and all the supplies that they needed were in these kits for these activities. There were 76 days of summer vacation, and all 76 days we had posted an idea, a playful idea. These kits were really well received, and this year we're planning on giving out 300. So year one of the Enfield Plays On campaign has been a huge success, and we're really excited for what years 2 and 3 are going to bring. Another program that we have brought to Kite is BOX, which stands for Build Our Kids Success. And this is a free before-school fitness program that's been taking place at the 3 K-2 schools and the 3 through 5 schools. We ran it in the fall 2 times a week for 8 weeks. And we had 110 students that participated. We had great feedback from students, parents, and teachers. A lot of the teachers had stated that students that were enrolled in BOX they were more focused and ready to learn on the days that they had BOX. So right now we're gearing up for our spring session, which will start the week of April 16th, and we are hoping to double enrollment for this session.
Did you say? We just want you to know, I can't remember whether you said this or not, that the Enfield Plays On is a pretty unique initiative in that we were invited to participate in this, and that it is actually a collaboration with not just the Hartford Foundation, but Manchester, Connecticut. And so there is a building of resources between the two communities where we are sharing ideas, again, sharing resources and really kind of getting a bigger bang for everybody's buck in terms of being able to do that. We know that, especially these days, that there are many children and families who are experiencing trauma and uncertainty in their lives. We are eternally grateful and always for the work that Jean Hoy does with Youth Services. And we have taken some of the kinds of ideas and really looked at how do we bring that to our very youngest children. We all know that if we reach children as early as possible, it is much easier to affect change in their lives. And so we are very excited that Dr. Gerald Kalman, who many of you may know if you've raised children in Enfield, he's a retired pediatrician, is forming a committee to explore some of the strategies that we need to bring to the community and to the schools to help young children and their families. The committee is being formed over the next month or so. Any of you that are interested in that issue, I know that it's something that is near and dear to many of your hearts. You know, you're more than welcome to be a participant in the work that we do with that. We are also in the second year of a grant from the William Casper Graustein Memorial Fund looking at the concept of equity in our community. We are privileged and grateful that we live in a community that has such diversity here. But we also know that in order to make our community the best that it possibly can be, we need to be able to provide supports for everybody to make all access to services, to organizations, to programs equally accessible to everybody, young children and their families. Towards that end, we worked with the Graustein Memorial Fund to host last year a community conversation. We had over 80 members of our community there participating in that. Some of you were there, and we're very grateful to that. We followed that up with a 2-day retreat with 18 people, and they developed plans on how to move forward with our support for young children, getting to know each other, being able to accept our differences, celebrate our differences, and really recognize the similarities among all of us. From that, there are programs now at the high school and at the middle school, and so beyond even the work that we're doing with KITE, some of the participants that were there have gone on and independently taken the ideas that our community shared in our conversations and brought them to different organizations and at different levels. At the elementary level, we've been focusing on families. And with the grant that we got as a second piece to our community conversations, we have actually been able to host several it's called People Empowering People. When I was a young parent, we had those, and it is a program that is still around. It's guided through the University of Connecticut in our state, and we worked with the University of Connecticut to tweak the program, to make revisions to it so that it was something that fit into different communities here in Enfield. And so we have a Spanish program, Arabic, Indian, Somalian, and African American. And all of those communities came together with facilitators from their communities, working with the University of Connecticut to make sure that they were culturally sensitive and supportive of the norms and the traditions of each of those communities. As you know, we also support the Parent Leadership Academy, of which many of you probably are either graduates or have connected or been speakers at. And in the beginning of February, we brought together representatives from the PEP programs along with the Parent Leadership Academy graduates, and we hope that we will be doing that on an ongoing basis because we know that the power of families and parents rests in their ability to voice who they are, what they do, and to share those with their families. So we're very hopeful that our community continues to be enriched by those experiences. The successes over the past couple of years that we have had with these grants over the past several years have caused us to be recognized in the state as being a model collaborative. And as such, we have been invited by the Hartford Foundation, along with 5 other early childhood collaboratives, to be part of a regional effort to bring collaboratives together, to use our expertise to help establish these same kinds of programs in other areas of our region, and to really look at what are the policies and the programs that best support young children and families in our state. And we're very proud of that work. Equally important to us is that the Fund for Greater Hartford is working to establish an ongoing relationship with 3 collaboratives, with 3 communities, and Enfield has been selected to be one of those communities as well. So we are grateful to all of you for the support that not just you give to us, but that you give to our partners. We are nothing without them. We are an organization of partners, and also to the families and young children in our community. We do have an invitation for you, which you're probably going to laugh at right now, but Melanie is going to explain to you.
Yes, you guys, I think, had received an invitation for our kite meeting, our special kite meeting. It was originally February 7th and was canceled due to snow. And we've rescheduled it for this Wednesday, March 7th. It's at 5:30 at the Stowe Early Learning Center. 5:15, we're serving a light dinner, and there's also childcare. This meeting is a great opportunity to have an open discussion on how we can work together on different issues. It's also an opportunity for you all to learn or hear from our partners and learn about the work that they're doing. So we're keeping our fingers crossed on the weather, but the meeting is scheduled for now for this Wednesday at 5:30 at Stowe.
And if we have to change it, we will make sure that we let you know. We think it's an important conversation. You need to be able to let us know how we can best help you in your efforts here in the community. So we thank you. Any questions or?
Councilor Denny.
Yeah, you're thanking us, but I'm going to thank you for all the work that you people do, because you do exceptional work, and I've seen your work before, and I just want to thank you again for coming.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks.
I can just say, as a play coordinator, I would be great. Foursquare, I can play very well. So, I was undefeated when my kids were little. I was undefeated.
We're writing your name down.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much for
Thank
coming.
you.
We appreciate it, and we hope to see you tomorrow night.
Thanks.
Thank you.
We hope so too.
Thank you. Wednesday. Sorry, Wednesday night. Apologize. I think tonight's Tuesday. We've had Tuesday meetings the last 3, right? So I know not on the agenda, but we also have another special guest that we'd like to introduce to the public tonight. And if Mr. Fox could come forward. And again, I'm not going to say his first name. Yeah.
Yeah, Rick.
Welcome, sir. If the button's on bright, just so the public knows, this is our new chief of police, Rick Fox. Again, we welcome. We are very excited to have him here tonight, and he has the floor. And welcome, sir.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It is an honor to have the opportunity to join you tonight. It is an even larger honor to be in a situation where I have offered and have proudly accepted the opportunity to serve as chief of police for the town of Enfield. I have had a law enforcement career that brings me back to 1983. 7 years as a Willimantic police officer, 2 years as an FBI agent, 2 years in private practice as an attorney. I still hold that license to this day, although I do not actively practice. And then the last 24 years with the Connecticut State Police. I had the opportunity in my state police career to serve in a number of different assignments, a number of different capacities, and for the last 2 years was the colonel, the highest ranking officer within the Connecticut State Police. There was very little that would have lured me away from that assignment, from that job opportunity. But when I saw the opportunity had become available to serve as the chief of police in Enfield, I was honored to be considered. I was even more honored to be selected, and I look forward to the opportunity to work with all of you and our respective constituencies.
Anyone have any questions? I know we had an opportunity to meet him earlier, but maybe for the public.
Yeah,
Counselor,
we had the pleasure of discussing a little sandwiches, what you get to come into now, and we were discussing all that community effort also, which we just heard from Kite and the collaborative between social services and the police department, and we're very happy to hear that you're 100% on board on that. Maybe you can, give everybody a little idea of, working with social services along with community groups to achieve certain goals in our community.
Absolutely, I'd be very happy to. So law enforcement has a role, and law enforcement has a role in instances where it's appropriate to engage in criminal law enforcement efforts. But the mindset that I think was very prominent 50, 40, 30, maybe even 20 years ago, that was all that law enforcement did, is certainly a very dated philosophy. I think it's important to understand that your police department, and certainly as a personal ethic or work belief that I possess, needs to work hand in hand with a variety of government and private sector services that are available in a multitude of areas. We could talk, and we did talk, about behaviors like instances like opioid addiction, instances, I believe I raised these, of sexual violence, instances of domestic violence, instances of community and economic development. And I think the police department has got a piece of any number of those subject areas. Yes, it's the role, and it's a very important role, to expect and to require law enforcement to engage in criminal law enforcement efforts when it is appropriate. But I also think it's entirely appropriate to recognize that law enforcement can have, and actually should have, a much larger role as a stakeholder in your community at looking at issues from a much broader perspective. I will be happy to bring that mindset and that philosophy to the position that I will start next week.
Thank you.
Anyone else have any? Just so folks know, we both Republicans and Democrats had a chance to talk with our new chief about an hour ago, and he was very frank and honest about a number of different issues. So we don't want to put him on the spot now, but again, just so everyone knows, we actually have had a meeting prior, and I think we're very excited to have Rick Fox on board. I think it's interesting. Over the weekend, I was lucky enough to attend the Girl Scout thing, and there's a lot of Western New England grads there. I graduated from Western New England. I think there's a kind of a common theme here.
Go Golden Bears.
There you go. All right.
Yeah. So anyway, the swearing in is what, Monday, 9 o'clock here?
So it'll be swearing in Monday, 9 o'clock, the 12th, week from today. Okay. Thank you very much for being here tonight, and we look forward to having you as our new chief.
Thank you very much. I'm honored to do so.
Thank you, sir. Move on to item number 7, public communications. We would ask folks, you have 5 minutes to speak for the first time, 3 if we go to the second. Please refrain from personalities, but would anyone like to speak before the council tonight? Ma'am. Yeah. Just make sure the name and address for the record, and just make sure that button's on. And it's yours.
Hi, I'm Kim Kowalchuk. I live at 39 Foxcroft Road. And Kim Scavato is going to hand out a packet to you. I'm here to share my concerns regarding a letter I and others in my neighborhood received regarding the Thompsonville Northeast Road reconstruction project, the sideway through driveway removal. The letter was dated Thursday, February 15th, indicating that the town council had adopted a policy on September 5th where all concrete sidewalks through driveways will be removed and replaced with asphalt. Jeez. Number 6 within the policy indicates that property owners may petition for consideration of relief from this policy requirement within 30 days of issuance. The town manager's office does need to receive a copy of the petition. Today, March 5th, a notarized copy of the petition with signatures from at least 52 of the 70 homes impacted was delivered to the town manager's office, representing 74%, noting that we are petitioning to have the sidewalks remain concrete in our neighborhood. I grew up in a neighborhood with sidewalks and was always told to remain on the sidewalks and out of the streets. We knew to follow that concrete path. I too have several concerns with replacing the concrete with asphalt. I understand the idea around the economics. However, I do not understand why the town council would make a decision to spend money, additional money, to tear up and replace perfectly good concrete with asphalt when it is not needed for the 70 homes in my neighborhood. It is my understanding there is a possibility that 11 of the homes with sidewalks may be impacted by the road construction, not the entire 70. In your package, you'll notice there are photos. Essentially, I took a sampling of 70 of the homes. There are 22 pictures included, which is 31%. In all pictures, 100% of those concrete sidewalks appear to be in good condition and do not need replacement, and that is after 29 years. However, 12 of those photos, you will notice that the driveway apron, that is asphalt, is in poor condition. Cracks, erosion, and actual sinking, and does need repair. There are also a few photos from the steel road work that was recently completed where the sidewalks were replaced with asphalt. They do show signs of cracking. They're not level like the concrete would have been, and a potential hazard to children riding bikes on a busy street. I've also included an article published by the East Coast Pavement Company dated January 18th, Concrete Sidewalk versus Asphalt. And of course, I understand there are pros and cons to both. I'd like to highlight just a few. Pros for a concrete sidewalk: it's more durable and can last 40 to 50 years, requiring less maintenance long term. Cons, of course, are the cost of installation. However, they note that with a concrete sidewalk, issues will often not arise for a long time, much longer than it will take for asphalt to need repairs. The pros for asphalt is that it is flexible, low in cost, and cheaper to maintain. The cons: it is shorter lifespan, requires more regular maintenance. So my question to the town is, are we planning to hire more maintenance workers, additional town taxes? In my opinion, if you spend extra money to replace the good concrete with asphalt, the sidewalks that appear to be in good condition today will become cracked and uneven and actually require a higher degree of maintenance and become a safety concern to the town. So let's talk about the liability issue. With a number of children and families that live in my neighborhood, they ride their bikes, walk their dogs, push their baby carriages on the sidewalks. I'm extremely concerned about how this asphalt will hold up. As you can see from those pictures, it doesn't hold up compared to the concrete. Today, the town is responsible and owns from the sidewalk to the street, and I, as a homeowner, am responsible for clearing that sidewalk within 24 hours of a snowstorm. It may become difficult if there is an unfortunate accident to determine if it is on the homeowner's property or the town's property when it is all asphalt. What is your plan for providing the homeowners with a liability waiver? As stated in the June 19th Town Council minutes, a resident from Edgewood slipped on a hazard walking down Steel Road, which was replaced with asphalt. Again, I do not understand why the town would make a decision to spend additional money to tear up and replace perfectly good concrete when the asphalt is not needed, with asphalt when it is not needed for 70 of the homes, but rather replace the few that may need it due to the reconstruction work with what they have today. I'm sure you can understand my concerns regarding this policy, and I do appreciate you building in a process which we can be considered grandfathered from the policy requirement, as was done with the Edgewood neighborhood. As I stated earlier, I believe we have met the requirements and timeline outlined in your policy. I appreciate your time and look forward to hearing from you soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
Very good job.
Ma'am. Nice job. We just gotta make sure the signatures are, that's the first thing. Welcome, name and address,
Thank
welcome.
you. Joan Lawson, 18 Mountain View Avenue. I'm actually here on behalf of the Enfield Together Coalition. Tom and I would like to thank Lori Ungeyer and Peter Falk for their recent attendance to the Community Anti-Drug Coalitions of America conference. Their attendance to the conference highlights their commitment to preventing youth substance use and learning local solutions to address the opioid epidemic in our community. As you may be aware, the funding for the Enfield Together Coalition comes directly from the Office of the President of the United States, Office of National Drug Control Policy. In October of 2017, President Donald Trump declared the opioid crisis a public health emergency, and with bipartisan support, the President and Congress provided the funding necessary for multi-sector community coalitions to identify and to respond to local drug, tobacco, and underage drinking problems. Without the support of you and our local elected officials and other key community champions, the Enfield Together Coalition could not continue to be competitive or eligible for state and federal funding to address the local drug crisis without any cost to local government, town government. Not only is your support critical, it is in securing funding, but to have informed and educated town officials leading and navigating local solutions to the drug problem is crucial to the Enfield Together Coalition's success. So we thank you again for your commitment and support. And I'm sorry Lori isn't here tonight, but Peter is here, and we so appreciate the time you took to go to that conference.
Thank you.
And also, I would like to just put a plug in for a couple things that our Enfield Together Coalition is going on this weekend. Our alcohol awareness event at our Enfield Square Mall, which is March 10th, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. It's in Center Court. There's going to be a lot of different activities that you can participate in, trying different kinds of goggles to show you the degree of how much alcohol you've had in walking a line. It's pretty interesting and sometimes pretty funny to see how that really affects you, and we are grateful that we have the opportunity to do this alcohol awareness event. Again, if you're able to be there, 11 to 3 on Saturday. There is also something that was passed out. It's called Save a Life, and this is for Monday, March 19th. It's a Narcan training, and you do need to register, and all that information is on the sheet, and would encourage any of you to go and get the training so you can have that available and to save a life. Any questions?
Saturday was 11 to this Saturday?
Yes, 11 to 3 at Enfield Square Mall, and it's at Center Court, and we'll have speakers and different things going on all day to 3 o'clock.
The 19th, we have a meeting.
Right.
Is that right here?
Since this is public communications, sorry, there's no back and
Okay.
forth. Yeah.
All
Thank
right,
you very
thank you.
much. Yep, just want to make sure I got it right.
Yeah.
Want to save it for your communication? On your yelling? Yeah, go ahead. I'll make sure you go first. Jack. Hey, Ed, you go first.
Jack Sheridan, 7 Buchanan Road, Enfield. I'll start out with, I'd like to know at this meeting, I brought up about the hot patch machine. I'd like to know what the status of that is. Also, I had the opportunity to look up on the PCB report, and the PCBs and talks about heat transfer fluids, hydraulic fluids, dielectrics, transformers, which you're talking about the ballasts in the lighting systems and so forth. But in the report, it said PCB is presently not mandated by the EPA. Gee. Liability risk exists for improperly disposing of the PCBs containing materials if it's greater than 50 parts per million. Excluded PCBs less than 50 parts per million. Connecticut regulated materials, the DEP regulated materials, identified source materials were reported at less than 50 parts per million. Materials installed prior to October 1st of 1984 may also meet criteria for excluded PCB product. Paragraph 4331, windows, louvers, and vents were less than 50 parts per million. So they're excluded. Exterior, interior windows 3 and 6 were greater than 50. Bulk product waste with asbestos. So it turns out that PCBs, most of the concern in the disposal of it is because it has asbestos in it. So the regulations are on the disposal. Environmental Source recommends collection of the indoor air samples. This was back in July 28, 2015. Vertical joint expansion joints. Air samples, initial sample had 1 exceedance above 300 ng. I'm trying to think of what that means per cubic foot. And that was found in the boys' locker room. The second floor hallway had 422 NGs. Those from the highest air levels at JFK were 20 ng per cubic foot. On the chart within the report, it says that, because I was wondering what the effect on health is. I didn't see anything. But it does say that 5,000 ng on a daily causes minor irritation of the eyes in lab animals. Imagine that. Remediation recommendations modify and increase the use of ventilation systems, increase use of wet vacuuming, HEPA-vacs, expansion joints to be sealed and covered, and exterior debris removed. It doesn't mention anything about the ballasts. Yet in the report, they were concerned about ballasts, as would I be, because I know about those things. So the first thing we should do is if we have ballasts anyplace, because that's what leaks into the air. Most of these other things are contained. And if you think about it, and what got me thinking about the research of this thing was that it would suggest, by the reaction that we got from this report, that we'd have to tear down all our schools and maybe even this building. Because of but it's not, that's not the case. It's only if you're tearing it down like asbestos. If you tear it down, you need to dispose of it in a clean, good way so that you don't mess the environment up. But otherwise, I remember some years back we had PCBs in the hydraulic oil right here at Elkhorn. All they had to do was drain the oil and put the new oil in. You know, just like they do with all the transformers that they changed out with the PCBs in them. I think most of those have been changed. I wouldn't swear to it, but a lot of them have been. So back from my concerns, and they talk about mercury and all those things, but most of the concern was the fact that if you have this material degrading in any way, more of the concern was about the asbestos that might become activated. And in construction, naturally, if you're in construction, then they're concerned about the disposal of these things, and I can understand that. But right now, it looks to me like we're getting all excited for not much of anything. Thank you.
Thank you, Jack. Anyone else like to speak for the council? Sir?
Richard Waska, 37 Newlands Road, Enfield. The largest part of any town's budget is spent on educating our children. Typically, it's 60 to 65%. At your last meeting, which I did attend, I found it somewhat disconcerting hearing that a subject was raised with regards to the environment at one of our schools, its effect upon persons who are there, teachers, children, and I therefore have given it some thought, done some further exploring, and I have questions for the council members. Particularly, the first question, I think, and the most important one, is there an individual on the council, or possibly the town manager or his office, that sits on top of the responsibility for making a determination as to what exists and what needs to be done, how it relates to any standards that may already be in place, what we know historically with regards what has transpired? Has the principal been talked to? Have any of the people in facilities maintenance been talked to? Do we know what we've done? Do we know how much money we've already spent? I understand numbers of things have had to be replaced and or cleaned repeatedly. In so doing, the maintenance people on various occasions have required hazmat clothing in order to do the job. I don't believe they would be donning hazmat equipment if there were not a known concern, which then immediately raises the question, when we get our next rain or our next snow that begins to melt, and all old buildings have a tendency to leak, all our homes do too, but when this material drips through and it's found on the windows that are between the classroom and the hallway, it's on the window sills in the room, it's on the teachers' study boards. It's in the children's work centers. It's on the floor. When it's cleaned up, it's still tacky after the effect. Then we're right back to the fundamental, our biggest concern, all of us as adults and as parents, grandparents, is our children. So this doesn't fall in any area outside of what is the right thing to do and where we spend the greatest amount of money in our town. One of the things that occurred to me is that we might be able to get a good assessment of what's going on simply by asking the school nurse, what has she recorded? What information's been brought to her attention? What children has she seen? Now, young people have limited immune systems, so they're going to come in with the usual colds and what have yous and the headaches. But is there something that we see repeatedly? Is it the same children? Are they coming from the same classroom? Which teachers are involved? Are there known concerns over time based on one particular area of the building versus another? Who's assigned there? What complaints have come in from our parents? Have they occurred more than once? I'd like to stop right there for the moment, but these are a host of common sense questions that I would like to hear a response from the council, in particular and most importantly, what any member of this council has done of their own volition or because of the sense of urgency they might feel in response to the subject discussed a couple of weeks ago. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak for the council? Bob.
Bob T. Katz, Woodgate Circle. Simply amazing. The town of London's going to overhaul their middle school for $48 million. Simply amazing. We're twice as much money. How can these other towns can do middle schools for a lot less, and we're building a Taj Mahal? We can't afford to do $95 million. We can't afford $50 million overhaul. Sunday morning at 3 o'clock, I woke up. I have to get up at 3 every morning anyways, and I watched the Planning and Zoning March 1st meeting. About a gentleman came with a whole report, did a study on the lighting at his house. His house is at total daylight all 24 hours a day because of the Enfield streets, the Enfield High School. And so I had to go down there and do some investigation. It's amazing, there's 4 lights that shine on his house, exterior lights, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. The rest of the school, all the lights are off. Also, in the stairwell, the lights are on. You can't shut them off because it's illegal in Enfield. But the other 168 towns, it's perfectly all right that you can have sensors on there to shut off the lights. So where are we? Are we a little behind the times in some of our regulations? We have the sensors right in this hallway, the lights shut off. I went down there at night, Sunday night. The place is lit up like a Christmas tree. All the corridor lights are on, all the main entrance, the back entrance, the side entrance, and then along that wall, that decorated wall, all the lights come on. I watched the lights come on. It was like a show extravaganza. The Oscars were on, so they had to turn on the lights. 90% of those lights aren't necessary. You look at the other schools, there's very few lights. Why do we have to light up Enfield High School? And I would imagine what the electric bill is, and we're trying to save some money, and we spend the money. Well, just get back to that gentleman that did the report. And what really got me is some of one of the town employees got very angry with that gentleman, and he had an argument almost started. If it wasn't for a couple people at the Planning and Zoning to quell this employee of the town of Enfield, It's amazing. You know, the employee should be there to solve the problem, not create problems. This employee was creating a problem. Ken Nelson and another lady at the other end, I can't remember her name, had to calm everybody down. And he's going to get an attorney. He's going to sue the town. There's no reason we want to spend all that money for a stoplight out in front of the school where we should be fixing the light problem at Enfield High. You can put opaque glass where his house is, and that'll solve the problem. You can shut those lights off. They're not needed. So I don't know why the employees of the town are giving this gentleman who gave permission to build the school a difficult time. And I don't think there was any cooperation from anybody in the town to help this gentleman. He's talking about getting an attorney. So if you want a major lawsuit again caused by employees from the town, because it continues, the town manager should be curbing these employees to work with the taxpayers. They're the ones paying the bills, not to fight against the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Anyone else like to speak for the council? For the second time? Hearing none, I declare public communications closed. And we move over to Councilor Communications, item 7. Councilor Denny.
Well, first of all, the patch machine is alive and well. I've seen it in operation on a few places. Actually, they did it this morning because I had a complaint. So if you have potholes and you know where they are, call your councilman and they'll have the patch machine out. On this free Narcan training, we won't be eligible to come because we have a council meeting that night. I just wanted to know, you can send me an email or something and let me know if you're going to have another one. On the school, it's my school. I believe you're talking about Henry Barnard. I've been over there about 3 times, talked to the principal, stood in the classrooms. Today I was there again. I'm not an expert on mold, so I don't know if there's still mold there. They haven't done an air quality check yet. Today, I can't communicate back and forth to you, so.
I understand. Will I be able to address
Sir,
that?
if you stay, yes,
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah.
And as it stands right now today, there wasn't a lot of dampness. I went into classrooms, the 3 that were pretty bad. Today it was pretty decent, but of course, they've been changing tiles and there was no bad tiles and so forth. I did not talk to the school nurse. I probably should have. She's a relative of mine. She's married to my nephew. But today it seemed like it was pretty decent there. I'm not sure about the air quality, and I don't know if there's mold there because, again, I'm not an expert on mold, but there was no, the 2 previous times I visited that school, the classrooms were pretty damp, and I questioned the situation. I also called the town manager, and he let me know that they were working on the roof and that buildings and grounds and so forth. I called the superintendent of schools. He never returned my phone call. He had the secretary call me and tell me that he was well aware of the fact, and that was the extent of it. So I guess that answers all the questions that came up. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Bosco.
Excuse me. Through the mayor and the town manager, Brian, can you, and I don't know if there's different things with school or whatever, but can you check and have checked what Jack said about the numbers? It would just be nice to know if things need to be done, they need to be done, but are they going to be dire straight emergencies to get them done or not? Bob, you're right. The school was too expensive, and that's why it failed. And that's why we got a team of people working on it now to come in at a more reasonable price and get rid of all the Taj Mahal stuff. So it will be coming out, and hopefully it'll be something that will be more price-friendly and something that can pass in a referendum. And on the testing of hail, do we have a timetable about when they're supposed to get there to do? He said they didn't do it?
Henry Barnard.
Or Henry Barnard, I'm sorry. Yeah, on Henry Barnard, do they have a timetable when they're supposed to do it?
Do you want to address that in the manager's report? Okay,
Yep, and then that's it for me.
Yep. Thanks. Councilor Scala.
Thank you. I don't want to belabor some of the points, but I believe Richard Waska, I think that's your last name, we have been trying to work to try to figure out what's going on over at Barnard, and I believe Thursday is the air quality test. Kim, I would hope that through the mayor to the town manager that somebody, I don't know if you guys are going to be the sort of the spokespeople for this area, but if I would hope that the town manager and DPW would sit down and have a meeting with you guys and try to come up with some sort of perfect. That makes me happy. And I believe
It was a brilliant policy that we put together.
I think that was all of the comments that I was going to. That was all I was going to say. Yeah. I don't want to keep going. Everybody else already
keep going.
said.
You have the floor.
Well, I do, but everybody else already said it, so we're good.
Councilor Crissati. Thank you.
Getting back to Bob's comment about the lighting at Enfield High School, if we could really take a look at that. I know that that problem had come up early, I think in the fall, about some light shining in somebody's house. So if we could, take a definite look at that. I know that when I look out my yard, I see the building lit up pretty good, and I'd like to know the main reason why all these lights are on, and especially if it's affecting somebody's house. So if we could take a look at that, that would be great. Okay, that's it.
Thank you, sir. Deputy Mayor Suzak.
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules and move items E, G, H, and I to miscellaneous and proceed to vote.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion, second by Councilor Denny, motion by Councilor, second by Councilor Fark, second by Councilor Denny, sorry. Any discussion on the motion? Sorry about that. Hearing none, all those in favor, a show of hands. All those against? 10 in favor, 0 against. All set? You have the floor? All set? Councilor Noah.
Just Miss Jones, she walked out, but I wanted to thank her for thanking us and members of going to the Enfield Together Coalition meetings in Washington. And I know sometimes people see that on Facebook and they think it's town taxpayer money being used in a crisis, and a tax crisis that we have right now. And in this case, it is not. But we're all graciously invited by the Together Coalition to go down there and learn some cutting-edge laws and ways to deal with drug problems in our community. So, and when we can go, I really recommend everybody to go when they get a chance. They're awesome clinics and great opportunities to learn. I want to also thank the residents. This is a very nice, well done protest, if you will. And we'll review it. Thank you very much. As for the PCBs, and I hope you have a minute during your time through the mayor to the town manager to kind of, basically what the EPA can and cannot do. And I sat and you ask, what do? We go to the meetings. We attend everything we possibly can to do with this issue to begin with. We had a really informative meeting maybe 8, 9 months ago where the EPA was actually there, and they were telling us what they can and cannot do. And there's the Toxic Substance Control Act that they basically can make us do the record keeping, the testing, and that's where we are right now. We're working with the EPA to satisfy their concerns with the school, and they felt the same way too. They want to work with us to make sure that we put a the proper program in place, which I think we're working on, and we're doing a good job of it. So we're working hand in hand with the EPA. We're working with state officials, with right down to the local health department, and we're monitoring it daily on this issue between all of us. So we're trying to stay up on it, and at the same time, you know, protect the health of the students. And I guess I'm not an expert on this, but maybe the town manager can kind of give a little better overview of what we're testing, why we're testing it, and why the EPA insists that we do test it, and have a long-term plan. Even though it is not legally bound to do it, there are other parts of the law that they have all the right in the world to make us conform. And it is still a known carcinogen. It's a cancer-causing agent, and you know we don't want it. If we know we have it, we're going to get in there and do what we can for the school. So if you get a chance, touch upon a little better than I can technically. I know the EPA is working with us right now to make sure it's handled correctly. And I think that's it. Oh, no, Durapatch. I actually drove down my road, which is St. James, a.k.a. the Durapatch Road, and I did notice several areas sprayed, and they do last. It's a great road to see the product because you're practically driving on it all throughout the whole road. So if you want to see what Durapatch can do, check out St. James. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Bosco.
Yeah, excuse me. I also want to mention that on Saturday, March 10th, Representative Stokes will be at the ShopRite, and they're going to fill a Humvee for the veterans. So it'd be nice if everyone goes there and helps and donates, and it's a good cause. And if you need to email them, you can get them at repstokes.com. Thank you. Oh, and by the way, just tapping off of something Ed said, if you're going to call your councilman for the potholes, make sure you call the ones at large. It's much better.
Thanks, Joe.
Councilor Davis.
Okay, for Kim with the sidewalks, thank you for the packet. And I would have to totally agree, the asphalt sidewalks are garbage. That's what I have. So I'd love to have the nice concrete flat sidewalks. You fall less on them also. So, and thank you for all the hard work that you guys put on with putting that packet together in your research. Jack, thanks again, always. A wealth of knowledge. You do a lot of studying and digging for us. Appreciate it. And Bob, you know, Bob, I'm thinking maybe you should file an application for the Joint Facilities Committee because you seem to have a lot of knowledge about schools and buildings, so maybe you should think of that. There's a couple openings. So since you got a wealth of knowledge, you should come on board and help us. Just a thought. No problem. Richard, as you said, you watched the last meeting, you saw it. I've been very vocal about Barnard. I will continue to be vocal. Ed has been great going there left and right, you know, and we've been communicating. Tom has been great, our leadership. I've sent him pictures from the parents of the child's eyes that have been affected by the classroom, and he said today the classroom did not smell nearly like it did the last few times he's been there. My concern is you can, and that's what I discussed with him today, the smell could be gone, and great, it's clean or aired out, but when you have individuals allergic to mold, they're still going to react because it's behind the wall or it's up above the tile, so we can clean the surface all we want, but if there is a mold issue, it's still going to affect the people that are highly allergic to mold. That's where my concern still sits. Do I think the test should have already been done? Yes. I know it's been postponed, and for the reasons why, I still think it's unacceptable. It should have been done. If it was somebody else's loved one, the test would have been done by now. So I personally apologize. I can't make things move any quicker as much as I wish I can snap my hands. And I really hope it is resolved. Through the mayor to the town manager, I'm wondering with Barnard, when I drove by Saturday, which I'll touch briefly of the amazing Mall Madness this weekend with the Girl Scouts, but we had Public Works truck at the school. So it's not the car, it's actually the van, box truck actually, on a weekend. And I know that we said we weren't doing overtime unless it was extremely crucial. So I'm just wondering what we were doing, and maybe it was working on the classroom. It'd be great But I'd also like to know what we did to eliminate the extremely strong odor that was in that whole entire hallway when you walked into the school, since it's smelling decent today. So would like to know what we actually did as a town to either clean it, air it, or I'm not sure of what. And then, since we had a town worker there on the weekend. And I wanted to, for Mall Madness this weekend, people that have gone there for the town, it was the Girl Scouts' 101st birthday, a great event, 106. Isn't that what I said? Sorry, 106th birthday, and we gave out free cupcakes. And Mike, thank you for presenting the proclamation on behalf of the town. And then personally want to thank Mike, Tom, Ed, Bob, Gina for coming and spending time with the local Girl Scouts that are there to watch what Girl Scouts do. A lot of them are doing the engineering and all this stuff with STEAM and STEM. And, you know, this is the future. These kids were amazing with their gold awards they're doing, their silver awards, and how much they impact our community and give back to our community. And these are young kids. You know, so I look at it as these are the future of our country, town, and state. And it was great to see the local people come and actually support these kids and their achievements of what they do throughout. So again, thank you very much for you guys going. I know it meant a lot to me. I'm a Girl Scout troop leader, and it meant a real lot to my troops to be able to meet all their elected officials that showed up. So I think that's it for now. That's all I can remember.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Councilor Falk, excuse me.
This week I went to a CCM workshop on cost savings ideas. And one of the things that jumped out at me was grants. I know budgets are really tight, money's hard to come by, but there's apparently a wealth of grants out there that we don't know about. And CCM offers a free service. Because we are members of CCM, that wouldn't cost the town anything. All we have to do is register with them, and once we've registered and gotten passwords and what have you, that can be shared amongst all the department heads or whomever would be looking for money or wanted to fill out grants. So it's a great program, and I forwarded that to the manager. I certainly hope that we take advantage of that. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'll be real brief. Again, nice job with the petition. This was the purpose, I think, of some very smart counselors back in the fall who put together a new ordinance. I won't mention any names, but there's some pretty sharp ones on this council now. So this will be submitted through to the public, through the manager, to the Public Works Committee, which I'm not sure when your guys' meeting is, but you guys will bring that up? Tuesday? Tuesday? Okay. And I just want to, real quick, the Enfield High girls basketball team right now is tied at half down at the quarterfinals down in London. If anyone was at the game on Thursday, I don't care what sport you play, what sport you love, what activity you love, when your team plays hard and tough, there is nothing better to watch. And our kids, if you're an Enfield resident, again, the boys basketball team starts the tournament on Wednesday. They have a fantastic team. The hockey team is in the Division III, and I apologize if I got it wrong, Division III playoffs as well. So again, low cost, you want to save a little money, but go see a very good sporting event. It's happening at Enfield High, it's happening at Enfield Twin Winks. It's Wednesday night is a home game, the boys are playing, and right now the girls are tied at half against the #1 team in the state. So if they knock this off, they win them, they go into the semifinals. And I just want to give one kid a shout out, and her father's going to get mad at me. But again, really tough game, very aggressive. Girl steals the ball from one of our kids. Her name's Cass. Instead of turning, sulking, running back, she turns, subtly tackles the kid, brings her down. Just a foul, was nothing personal. And by the way, afterwards, I had to go up and say that is Enfield toughness. That's what Enfield's all about. And again, there's so many good things going on in town. The spring sports start very soon. We have some very good softball teams. We have some very good baseball teams. So again, if you want to go see some young athletes play hard, they're right here in the town of Enfield. So again, thank you, everyone. We will move on to, sorry, yeah, go ahead.
I meant to mention this before. This is in regard to Allied's Special Olympic snowshoeing team. They participated last weekend in the Connecticut State Games and the Winter Special Olympics, which was held at Eversource in Windsor. Who would ever think that there would be snow? The people at Eversource actually made the snow for the event, which was attended by hundreds of Special Olympians. Congratulations to all the participants from Enfield that are on this team. Also, on March 18th, over at Fermi High School, there's an invitational basketball tournament. It's a round-robin tournament. Begins at 8:30 a.m. If you're around town, stop in. Talking about want to see some athletes participate and compete. And then also this particular weekend is the North Central Regional Swim Meet, which is going to be held at Wyndham High School. And that's an all-day event also. Actively involved with Allied Special Olympics athletic clubs. And, you know, they talk about pride, commitment, and having a lot of heart, which goes right along with our scholastic sports. And they should be congratulated upon. And I just had to mention that to everybody out there in the public. If you get an opportunity to attend one of these events, come on down.
Thank you.
Yep.
Moving on to item number 9, Town Manager Report.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Included in the council packet is the project and activities report, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions or concerns regarding the content. Just a couple of items to touch on from tonight's discussion. The mold review and assessment at Barnard is scheduled to take place Thursday evening, and I believe it's Thursday and Friday evening of this week. And that's to enable them to get up and pull up ceiling tiles and poke their heads around to determine whether or not there's any, I think it's active growth and sporation is the phrase. In the event that they witness any of those two conditions, then they'll take sampling from in and around the area where they witness the sporation and the active mold growth, and then they'll compare those to control samples from other areas of the building where active mold growth was not witnessed. EHS lighting, this has been an ongoing issue for some of the neighbors. We've worked a couple of different occasions to try and rectify this issue, obviously not to much success. I did have a conversation with the chairman of the EHS building committee shortly after that meeting, that PZC meeting in question. We did talk about a couple of issues that we thought could resolve those concerns in short order. He was expecting to get the permanent certificate of occupancy issued in the next few days, and we should be able to rectify it shortly thereafter. As a note, I did get a call from the chairman of the committee this evening, but I was unable to take that call. I had someone in my office, but I'm hoping he's calling with good news on that. My office begins its all-consuming review of the FY18 budget starting tomorrow. All of the various staff were able to submit their budget as of Friday afternoon. Their access to the budget is closed off as of today, and the finance director and I will begin reviewing tomorrow, and I think we begin detailed review with the department starting Wednesday. So we'll be making progress on that. With respect to PCBs, I apologize, but I am off guard on this particular subject, other than to say that Greg Gabonell, our Deputy Director of Public Works, is our point person on this particular project, and he engages in communication with our consultants at Fuss & O'Neill. Carlos Texador is our point of contact there. More than happy to have some additional information put together to share with council as soon as we can get that together to highlight some of these concerns. Maybe an update that we can post to address the comments that were presented tonight. There's also been discussion with the mayor about turning quarterly Q&As into subject-specific quarterly Q&A, so brief topic presentation and then fielding question and answer. And this could be a very good topic later this year for such an event, especially with some proposed work planning to occur in the building. So beyond that, more than happy to answer any other questions or concerns to the best of my ability.
Councilor Arnone?
Yeah, just speaking of topics for the quarterlies, I just noticed with the public outreach for planning and zoning, I know that was a topic of what we're doing to advertise Enfield, the 61-slide presentation of the accomplishments for the year. I haven't seen it. I'd like to see it.
I will talk with the planner about perhaps maybe just emailing that to you
Yes.
all so that you can peruse it at your convenience, whether or not 61 at a time or one slide for 2 months. So.
Yeah, maybe we can get a condensed version, though,
Sure.
for us. It'd be nice to see it, let the residents see it, too.
Sure.
Especially from those concerns. Thank you.
Sure.
Any other questions? Brian, do you want to, so I think the traffic light, I think we need to give the public an update where we're on the traffic light.
Sure. With respect to the traffic signal at EHS and Route 5, we finally did get some communications, I'll call it more consistent communication with DOT fairly recently. So DOT did reach out to my office via email and clearly indicate that the funds to reimburse the town for the traffic signal at EHS and Route 5 would come from the non-upgrade of the traffic signal at 192 in Moody, right there at the annex. What DOT is currently planning to do, or what they have asked us to consider doing, is to allow them to put the signal at 192 in Moody into a 90-day phased all red status. They'd also put up some additional stop signs and some warning signs to test whether or not traffic counts at that intersection would warrant and would be able to respond positively to the fixed traffic control. Following the end of that 90-day period, they would ask that the town hold a public hearing where DOT could present their findings with respect to that temporary traffic configuration to determine whether or not it is in everyone's best interest for them to proceed with putting in the four-way controlled stop and reimbursing the town for the reconstruction of the signal at Route 5 and EHS, or whether or not the signal at Moody and 92 needs to remain and be upgraded as was originally scheduled. So we have traded some emails, like I said, back and forth with respect to that conversation. There were some questions that had come out of leadership with respect to the kind of signage and the appropriate signage. I know, Councilor Arnone, you and your caucus had some additional questions I have yet to get over to DOT with respect to maybe some other traffic control measures, but that is on my to-do list yet this week. I also want to touch briefly on the construction of the signal at EHS and Route 5, if that's an option that the council is going to pursue, whether or not we build and are reimbursed, or whether or not we build and fund outright. Part of the reason that the town is interested or has expressed an interest is because DOT has, to build the light is because DOT has acknowledged that the town can build the light faster than DOT. According to the commissioner, DOT's time frame to build the light is 3 to 5 years. So that is the time frame that the town of Enfield would have to beat. Keeping that in mind, coming in under the 3-year mark to construct the light is possible, but if the town were to build the light, even without DOT reimbursement, because it is DOT jurisdiction, the town has to build the light and construct the light in accordance with DOT provisions. So there are all kinds of other hearings and bid requirements and design elements that the town has to consider. So it's my understanding that while there are some preliminary designs that were done and some preliminary engineering done with respect to the signal, it's unknown yet whether or not any of that effort will be considered by DOT as meeting any of their existing requirements. Right. So there's still a lot for us to go with respect to vetting this out to ensure that whatever happens there is going to be in accordance to DOT, because they are the controlling authority with that being a Connecticut state route. So we're continuing to pursue that. We're continuing to work through it, but it's a process that
appreciate
involves,
that detailed, because I think both parties, so I mean, I know both parties have had, so this is fairness, have had numerous conversations about this. Right. And again, I know you've taken a little bit of heat, but you've been working very diligently with the Department of Transportation. And that was some of the questions that folks had for our new chief of police, whether there's other options. And since you didn't say it, and I'm the mayor, I'm going to say it, the cost for a light right now is $750,000, which quite frankly is expensive, to say the least.
Right. On the higher end, the light could be that expensive, yes, sir.
So this is, again, we're not trying to, this is just letting the public know that we've been working on this, both parties. This is in fairness to both parties and through the town manager's office. And we're at a point now where, again, to your point, we're looking to do what we can in a very cost-effective, expedient way where you're not talking 3 to 5 years. And, you know, if we have to fund the money up front, you know, people have to understand that that's the point, because I don't think there's folk, I don't want to speak for anyone here, but I don't think there's anyone here that wants to give up, at this point, a light over on North Maple and Moody. So that's where we're at, and that's, again, but to the public, we're exploring other avenues, as the town manager said. But again, this is not as simple as it seems, unfortunately. But I appreciate your explanation.
Sure.
Anyone else? Sitting in on item number 10, sitting in for Mr. Bronson, Mr. Serrato, Town Attorney's Report.
Mayor, thank you. There's no report this evening. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That was easy.
No report.
You'll get paid for tonight.
We figured to give you something to talk about. Thank you. Okay, sorry, moving on. Item number 11, report of any special committees of the council. Councilor Falk.
The Development Services Subcommittee will be meeting on Wednesday, 4 o'clock in the Enfield room. I think Bob is on that, and Lori. Look forward to that.
And you guys just want, I'm sorry, one more time announce when the Public Works meeting will be?
Tuesday, March 13th at 3 o'clock.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else, special committees of the council? Councilor Crissati?
Well, I just want to mention that we shored up a date of June 12th. It's going to be for the Commission on Aging, the community room. It's going to be in the town library from 12 to 2. And the topic that will be addressed is elder abuse. So if you want to mark that down, June 12th.
Thank you, sir.
That has been confirmed.
Okay. Moving on, number 12, old business. So on page 1, we have appointments A1 through 3. I don't believe we have any. Moving to page 2, we have appointments 4 through 16. Again, I don't believe we have any. Moving to page 3, under town manager, appointments 1 through 12.
No appointments at this time, sir.
No appointments for the town manager. Under old business, item C stays on the table, which is the, Enfield High Renovation Committee. Item D, Macy still stays on the table, right, Miss?
That's correct.
Yeah, at this point. So we move to new business, item 13, which is appointments town council. These are just, again, not appointments, but folks who unfortunately have had to resign from 3 various committees in town. Nothing there new, I would assume. And then on item E, discussion resolution adopting the town emergency contingency plan for elections. Now, this is new business, so we don't have to bring it off the table, Suzanne, or do we have to make a motion? No, we could just bring it up for discussion?
Correct.
Okay. So I will read the resolution.
What about the appointments, P and Z Commission appointed?
That's down here. That's down. No, it's down. It's the next. Keep going. It's down there, right there. Yeah. Oh, do we have any, I'm sorry, appointments of town manager C or item D on P and Z?
No, sir.
Okay. So we have discussion resolution adopting the town Enfield emergency contingent plan for elections. Let me just find the resolution. Okay, resolution adopting the town of Enfield emergency contingency plan for elections. Whereas pursuant to Connecticut General Statute S9-174A, the Connecticut Secretary of State adopted regulations September 2012 that include an emergency contingency model plan, and whereas the town register of voters and the town clerk recommend the adoption of the emergency contingency model plan as the town's plan, and whereas the Connecticut General Statute S9.174A requires that the plan be submitted to the legislative body of the municipality for approval. Now therefore be resolved that the Enfield Town Council does hereby adopt and approve the attached Town of Enfield's emergency contingency plan for elections.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilor Falk, seconded by Councilor Noon. Discussion on item. We have Mr. Fiore, the Register of Voters here to answer any questions. So before the council asks any questions, go ahead, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, Deputy Mayor, Honorable Councilors. Really nice to be here again tonight. Thank you again, Mr. Town Manager, Town Attorney, Town Clerk. Basically, just a very synopsis. First of all, the Registrar for the Republicans, Mark Sheen, unfortunately is out of town tonight. That's why he's not here. Mark and I came across this as we were looking into the possibility of moving Enfield Street School voting location over to Enfield High. And as you know, we're not going to do that at this point in time. But this came up as one of the task items to be reviewed, and we did review that with our two deputies, Tom Stilgaitis, a Democratic deputy, Kelly Waller, a Republican deputy, with Gary Harrison, who's in charge of the security for the Board of Education for all the schools, and with Officer Stephen Hall, who's responsible for all the emergency plans here in the town of Enfield. So all six of us had a chance to review this document. It's about 5 years old. We found some disparities. We wanted to tighten up some of the verbiage. We added a couple of paragraphs. I didn't pass on to you the working document that had all the strikeouts and things of that nature. I actually sent you the completed document. I didn't think you wanted that detail. So basically, this is something, as you already said in the resolution, needs to be adopted by the legislative body. It's been completely reviewed, and I'm just here to answer any questions that you might have about this document.
Thank you, sir. Any questions?
Other question.
Councilor Falk?
Could you just highlight some of the major changes?
Sure. Just give me 1 second, Councilman Falk. One of the things we did is we actually added another. First of all, the breakout of this document is pretty much mandated by the Secretary of State's office, so we couldn't really deviate from the sections and things of that nature. One of the things we did do is we added a section in the back, the final section, section 34, for what would happen if a voting site had a lockdown. As you know, of our 3 voting sites, 3 of them are schools out of the 5. So one of the things that Mr. Harrison asked us to do is actually add a section for if we had a lockdown at one of the schools. So we added that. A couple other things we did was we basically struck out a lot of the verbiage that alluded back to our old friend Dan Van Digny when he had this position. Actually, his title was in some of these sections, and we decided to be more generic in nature and remove some of that, Councilman Falk. And the other things basically was just tighten up some of the verbiage. There really was not very much change at all here. It was just something we felt we needed to do since we were reviewing it anyways due to the possible voting change. So we said, we might as well get this done and pass this on and be current with it.
Thank you.
So really, most of the changes were cosmetic in nature.
All set?
Yep.
Councilor Noon.
So we came close in the October storm, for having a real major voting problem. I know we're within days of not knowing if we're going to have power on it and anything. So people don't realize how important this document is in our democratic system to what happens if you can't hold an election. So
you're absolutely right, Councilman Aroni. Was that 5 or 6 years ago now, that October storm? And we came really close to that. And basically, this emergency plan is mandated by state statute by the Secretary of State's office for that reason. And we do take it very seriously here in Enfield, and we do adhere to this. We review this with the moderators and assistant moderators. As you know, that's our management team at each of the voting location sites. They review this as part of their documentation. They have this on hand. Not every section, I'm sure they don't memorize every section, but they have this on their person, and it's something we do take very seriously here.
Great. Nice job. Thank you.
Thank you.
There's no doubt you do. I read through this twice, and it's very detailed. Yeah. My only question, and I apologize if it's in a separate agreement.
It's okay.
So what happens to the ballots if something happens? That's the only thing I don't think touches through the whole. So say, unfortunately, just say you had to shut down JFK
for
whatever reason.
Like a school lockdown, for instance.
And it's 6 o'clock at night, you've had open from 6. So what happens to the ballots?
Yep, the ballots are actually in. Let's take this, we'll take this example if I can very quickly. Say it's 2 in the afternoon. Yep. And it's at JFK, and we actually had some type of incident, and they had to lock down JFK. Yep. Let's use that as an example. Yep. Basically, what would happen is the system moderators would take that tabulator, which is on a ballot box. Yep. The ballots are inside that tabulator box, and those 2 people would be responsible in this plan to bring it outside and guard that. They wouldn't be able to leave the building because the ballots are in there.
Right. So then what happens? So what happens if you can't open the building? So so the register, so.
So then at that point, they would leave. Everyone else had to vacate the building or not vacate the building. Say they couldn't vacate the building. They're in the gym and it's locked down and they're sitting there with the ballots. The voting location is shut down. We would proceed to open up an alternative voting location. In this case, it would be over at the school on Weymouth Road.
Yep.
I'm looking at Councilman Bosco, that's his district. And we have alternative workers, we have alternative machines, we have backup machines. We would open up an alternative voting site at
So they know that.
Parkman. Thank
They
you.
know those procedures, even though it's not spelled out.
Absolutely,
Okay.
yes, yes.
That was-
There is a section that actually spells out opening up an alternative voting site in case of
Okay.
an emergency.
All right, got it. Thank you. Yep. Any further questions? Thank you very much. We
Thank you.
appreciate it. Hearing no further discussion, roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crissati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 10 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night.
Good job, Lou.
So move to item 14, items for discussion. Item A, consent agenda. Do we have a motion to remove from consent agenda?
So moved.
By Counselor Falk, seconded by Counselor Crissati. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Those opposed? Abstentions? We have 10 in favor, so this now becomes, so Suzanne, we can discuss it now, or does it go to move miscellaneous? Some
We
folks
wanna
just wanted to hear an
discuss-
explanation on it. Can we talk about an hour, or do we?
You should move, items for discussion if you want to, this should go to miscellaneous.
All right, so move, okay, so then motion to move the miscellaneous.
So moved.
By Counselor Falk, sorry.
So just to clarify, we're moving
A1.
A1 to...
A2 stays on consent, we'll vote right after it.
Okay, just to get...
So motion is to move
clarification.
A1 to miscellaneous.
Correct.
Right.
Motion by Counselor Falk, by Counselor Bosco. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing all those in favor by show of hands. Those opposed? So it'll be on item A1 on miscellaneous. So now on item A2 for consent, we can go by show of hands. Motion for a show of hands. All those in favor? All those opposed? 10 in favor, 0 against. So items B on items for discussion, again, unfortunately, resignations from the Enfield Beautification Committee and Ethics Committee. Just FYI for everybody. Item C, no appointments for town manager. Item D, P and Z appointments. Item 1, Capital Region Council of Governments, Regional Planning Commission, Enfield Representative Alternative. The term of office of Linda DeGray expired on 12/31/2017. Do we have a nominee? Deputy Mayor Suzak.
We
No,
just have to
we're
okay
just-
it, right?
We're just approving what the P and Z sent us.
Oh, so we just have to say approval, of even though it's not spelled out in these two?
Correct.
Okay. So the motion is just to approve the recommendation from the planning and zoning. Sorry about that. For items D1 and D2, the motion is to approve the recommendation from the Enfield Planning and Zoning Commission.
So moved.
By Councilor Falk, seconded by Councilor Arnone. Any discussion on the motion? I apologize. Deputy Mayor Suzak.
Just to clarify, the people that the P and Z brought forward are Linda DeGray and Sarah Grubner.
Which we have the applications in the packet.
Correct.
Okay, sorry about that, folks. No further discussion? Roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crissati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 10 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
So now we move to miscellaneous, or Suzanne, I want to make sure, we left a few on the table, you have to say that we just left it on the table, correct?
They'll move to new business.
Yeah, so on new business, so item F will stay on the table, item J and K stays on the table. And now we move to miscellaneous. Item A1, be it resolved in accordance with Chapter 6, Section 8F of the Town Charter, the following transfer is hereby made. To Adult Day Center, other professional services, 22-40431-5 33900 of $2,000 from Adult Day Center, food and food-related, 22040431-563-000, certified that the funds are available on 2/20/2018 by John Wilcox, Director of Finance, approved by the Town Manager on 2/28/18.
So moved.
By Counselor Narone.
Second.
By Counselor Falk. Brian, folks just want to hear a brief description of this? That's why we didn't go on consent.
With respect to item A1, which is the $2,000 transfer, that particular item is necessary in part to cover unanticipated professional expenses. This is specifically related to the issue where we had unexpired license for several members of the staff. And so while those individuals were getting their credentials renewed, we had to bring in some additional assistance from outside agencies.
Thank you.
Sure.
Any questions for the Town Manager? Hearing none. Oh, sorry, Counselor Falk.
How long is the training? How long will this be for?
It's my understanding that these expenses are already incurred expenses, and so that those individuals who were working with expired credentials have had those credentials renewed. At least there are a sufficient number of individuals who have had their credentials renewed that they've been able to return to work, and we no longer need.
So the
any
training has
assistance.
gone by, we're just paying for the training that already took place?
So I can't speak to the specific individual. There were several different types of licenses. A lot of it had to do not so much with training as it did with reporting previous training or work that was done with respect to their particular trade or their particular profession, I should say. So, but in this instance, this is for work that has already been performed. This is not for ongoing coverage.
Good, thank you.
Hearing no further discussion, roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crissati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Fall.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 10 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item E, discussion resolution, request to transfer funds for school security of $35,538. Resolved in accordance with Chapter 6, Section 8, Section 8-F, Section 8F of the Town Charter, the following transfers hereby made from 31042018-413310, CIP Revenue 2018-School Security Grant of $35,538 to 3100-83734-573900, School Security Equipment other equipment of $35,538. Certified the funds are available on February 28th by John Wilcox, Director of Finance, approved by the Town Manager, Brian Chadkowski, on 3/1/2018.
So moved.
By Counselor Narone. Seconded by Counselor Muller. Any discussion? Brian, just quick, what are the 3 buildings it mentions that we're doing here?
This is for work that was previously performed, and I'm trying to recall the buildings off the top of my head, which I cannot. So,
Vestibule?
Yeah, there's one in Alcorn.
I know Stowe was one. Yeah. So I don't want to, you maybe just get the answer. Yeah.
okay, I'll follow up.
Yeah, no worries. No further discussion. Roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crissati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Fall.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 10 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Okay, item G. Discussion resolution authorizing the preparation of schematic drawings for renovations at JFK Middle School. Be it resolved that the Enfield Town Council hereby authorizes at least the preparation of the schematic drawings and outline specifications for the renovations at JF Kennedy Middle School, prepared on February 23rd, 2018 by the Town Manager's Office.
So, second.
Second by Counselor Narone, moved by Counselor Falk. Any discussion on the resolution? Counselor Sakala.
I know that this was a question that was posed, but I have no idea what this is for. The resolution doesn't say what we're doing. It says at least the preparation. So I won't be voting for this because I have no idea what it is. So unless there's some more detail put in there, I'm not going to vote for this.
What do you, Brian, go ahead.
Right.
All right. So this is legislation that is coming out of the Joint Facilities Committee with respect to checking off the various requirements of Connecticut general statutes to prep for the CGS 049 grant, which is the school reimbursement grant when JFK comes in. So at this point, this is, there is no incurred cost with respect to this particular legislation. So, but this would tie into work you have not seen yet, but we'll get the opportunity to review. So the Joint Facilities Committee is in the process of soliciting RFQs and RFPs to do this work. So this sets the table for the committee to do that, and then that proposal will come before this council with respect to vendor approval and financing. So,
which is great, and I want all of that to happen. I just have no idea.
Right.
I mean, I'm reading this, and there's no way I'm going to put my name on this if I have no idea who's doing what. It doesn't say any of that information on it. So unless there's more direction in here, I don't understand how anybody can say yes to that.
So I have to apologize. I was under the impression that the members of that committee were communicating back to the respective parties on these particular issues.
Well,
so,
regardless if they were communicating to their respective caucuses or not, which they are, it is still not in the resolution.
Yeah, I did put that on our list to you today when we did leadership questions. So that was on an email.
correct. And to the extent, Councilor Arnone, that I saw your email, I did provide you a response copied to everyone based on the information that I have. As it has been explained to me in the past practice of this council, when there is legislation that is brought before you, oftentimes that is generated by the subcommittees of council, that legislation comes before you without cover letter. If that is a practice that this council no longer wants to undertake or wants to continue to practice, we'll be more than happy to provide more detailed cover memorandums to these resolutions in the future. But this legislation, as well as its associated legislation, is being provided to you, as has been similar legislation before this body from subcommittee.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
I guess these three are they're standard, I guess, resolutions that the town has to do in order to be in compliance with what the state requires when we go for the grant. Today, the members, Tim Neville and Randy Daigle, met with Chris Drezek, because there's another component that's the Board of Ed side. Now, Tom, you weren't at the meeting. Liz, you were there. So you were aware that that part would be done as well. So this is the requirement that the town council side has to agree to do in order to qualify for any grants that are school grants from the state of Connecticut.
Go ahead.
I mean, all right, I don't mean to beat a dead horse, but I'm going to. I think there might be one person up here besides that wants JFK to pass and get renovated more than me, and that's you, Donna. So, I mean, I am all for this. I'm just saying some of that information needs to be in this resolution, because everybody's going to look back at this resolution and nobody's going to know what in the world it's for. Nobody.
Any further discussion? Can this wait for more detail, or is that to go?
I guess, so what actually you're asking, Gina, is that it say what, I guess, what we're going to do at JFK? I guess I'm a little confused.
Well, do you mind? Yeah. So, and this was discussed at caucus, that we may know all the stuff that you had just said, but the public does not. So the public has to read this, this piece of legislation. You would never understand it without having that detail. So, granted, if you're an insider, you may know that because we caucus, we talk, we email back and forth. We're just talking the average citizen that looks at our agenda and looks at our legislation would not understand that. So I guess in the future, what we're saying, maybe we do need to retool that. So we got to make sure that our legislation is understandable to the people that we're responsible to. So that's what it's all about. We may know what it is. We may have discussed it, but hey, if I read this as a citizen, we want to be transparent, open, and with everything. So just a little more detail would be nice.
Go ahead, Donna. Yep.
I guess, so we just need to really add to this, and this is in preparation for grant submittal for referendum, is really what we need to add to that.
Right. So in Brian's email, it says, this is the resolution effectively authorizing CGS-049 grant application. So perhaps some of that information should be in the resolution. So we all can go back in our notes in a year and understand what we
Would you like to
did.
make as amendment to the motion? There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
Is that acceptable?
If that's going to fix it, then if that's what this is for, then yes.
So I can't answer that question because this legislation, these three pieces of, we'll call them these three pieces of legislation were prepared by a consultant supporting the committee. And my understanding is that consultant put this legislation together to meet the requirements of the state so that the context and the content would be acceptable to them so that the application did not get kicked back on a technicality. Recognizing that what you're after is to have content and context to why council is adopting this particular or this group of resolutions. I am more than happy to work with the consultant and the members of the committee to make sure that there is better information communicated. I just can't say with any exact specificity that language would come in the resolution. It may come as a cover memo like we do other resolutions, whatever.
Which is fine.
I'm
There's
more than happy.
nothing with this.
Again, I'm more than happy to provide whatever information is requested. I was unaware that additional information was necessary until this item hit the floor, other than what I had previously provided. So if it needs to be tabled, we're more than happy to put together the information and bring that back.
Well,
Go ahead.
Jean has the floor.
If it's tabled, is that going to be an issue
Yes.
with trying to get the
Yes.
timeliness and getting everything done?
Yes,
I mean,
it is. Yeah, it is.
it is.
It is.
That's
This is critical.
fantastic.
Yeah.
And we've paid somebody to do this resolution?
So that was my comment. Yes, it is critical that we move along with this legislation.
You can't just reference his email in the resolution?
Yeah, can you send a cover letter afterwards? Providing the detail you sent.
More than happy to, yes.
And it's also on the record now.
Yeah. Yep.
Correct. And for the record, the consultant is CSG, and they are not under contract, and they provided this assistance at no cost to the town, just for the record.
Thank you.
Does the record keeper have all that?
Yes, we do.
Roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Bosco. 4. Counselor Sakala.
Abstain.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Fall.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
We have 9 in favor, none against, and 1 abstention.
Item H, discussion resolution authorizing the Board of Education to apply for grants for the renovation of JFK Middle School. Be it resolved, the Enfield Town Council authorized the Enfield Board of Education to apply to the Commissioner of Administrative Services to accept or reject the grant for the renovations of the JFK Middle School. Date prepared February 23rd by the Town Manager's Office, 2018.
So moved.
By Counselor Arnone.
Second.
Second by Counselor Denny. Hearing no discussion, roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 10 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item I, discussion resolution, a resolution naming the Joint Facilities Committee as the Building Committee. Be it resolved that the Joint Facilities Committee is hereby established as the Building Committee with regard to the pre-referendum services for the renovation at JFK Middle School, prepared February 23rd, 2018 by the Town Manager's Office.
So moved.
By Counselor Falk, seconded by Counselor Crisati. Any discussion on the motion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
4.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 10 in favor, none against, and no abstentions.
Item J and K remains on the table? Correct, right?
No.
Or Brian, what are we doing here in J and K?
On J and K, which is the bid waiver, correct, for, yes. So these particular items are relevant to moving the wastewater treatment plant project forward. So we had some communication back and forth with respect to the town attorney's office on whether or not these should be items under the purview of town council or whether or not these are items under the purview of the Water Pollution Control Authority. Based on the conversations that we've had and the communications we've had back and forth with the town attorney's office, it was the opinion of the town attorney that only the town council by charter has the ability to waive the bidding requirements, which is why this ultimately wound up being on the council docket as opposed to the Water Pollution Control Authority docket. So we did have discussion. We did talk about some of the issues I think you in particular, Councilor Arnone, had raised previously about the role of the WPCA with respect to the town council and how they should be independent and how those roles sometimes do become blurred based on our current situation. In talking with the Public Works Director, we are concerned about the effect that not acting on these particular items tonight may have with respect to the time frame to accomplish some of the things that we are trying to get done on such a short time frame. So we would ask that you please act on these items tonight while you have the chance and while we're together. So,
Can we?
Go ahead, Councilor Arnone. Yeah.
So, like bonding, so the Water Pollution Control can't bond. The town of Enfield has to bond because there is a separation there because we actually are the only ones that can bond. So I kind of thrown this back and forth myself. I wasn't sure how I felt on it, but I would imagine it would fall in that same realm there too. Is the town's project is to a certain point this is the town's project and not the Water Pollution Control's project. So I'm comfortable moving on this tonight, and I know it's time sensitive to. We have a $36 million project waiting to get launched, and we need to do that. So if it's a technicality, I can live with. Thank you.
I'll read the motion. Okay. Item J, discussion resolution. Resolution waiving the bid requirements for owner's project manager service with Fuss & O'Neill and to authorize the town manager to execute such contract. Whereas work is concluding at the WPC facility design and bid process, whereas the town now wishes to move expeditiously with construction efforts related expeditiously with construction efforts related to the Water Pollution Control Project facility upgrade. And whereas the next steps require engaging a consultant for owner's project manager with services including oversight of construction on behalf of the town, and whereas subsequent to a competitive procurement, Fuss & O'Neill has been serving as the owner's project manager since 2016 during the design phase of the project and provides valuable continuity of services and familiarity with design and all related issues. And whereas Fuss and O'Neill has been and would continue to be an extension of town staff, representing the town's interests from a financial and technical perspective. And whereas engaging a firm less familiar with design of facility will require a delay in project commencement, jeopardize clean water grant funding, and could result in delays and other issues in construction of the facility. Now therefore be it resolved that in accordance with Chapter 5, Section 8, Paragraph D of the Enfield Town Charter, the Enfield Town Council does hereby determine that it is against the best interest of the town to require competitive bidding for the owner's project manager services related to the water pollution control facility upgrades, and be it resolved that the town manager is authorized to engage Fuss and O'Neill as owner's project manager for services related to the upgrades plant construction pursuant to the firm's existing contract for on-call consulting and engineering services. Date prepared March 5th, 2018 by the Department of Public Works.
So moved. Second.
Moved by Counselor Nolan, second by Counselor Falk. Any discussion on the motion? I think your explanation and Tom's question, but Counselor Denny, go right ahead.
Once again, time sensitive. Everything is always time sensitive, and we keep continuing to waive bids, and I'm against waiving bids. Thank you.
So noted. Roll call, please.
Counselor Muller.
4.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala. 4. Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
Against.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 9 in favor, 1 against, and no abstentions.
Item K, discussion resolution waiving the bid requirements for construction administration, consulting, and engineering contract with Woodard and Curran, and to authorize the town manager to execute such contract. Whereas work is, make sure I get this right, sorry. Yeah. Whereas work is concluding on the WPC facility design and bid process. Whereas the town now wishes to move expeditiously, sorry, with construction efforts related to, I'll get that word next time, related to the water pollution control project facility upgrade, and whereas next steps require engaging a consultant for construction administration, including resident project representation related to design and consultant work, and whereas Connecticut DEP has confirmed in writing that the 2013 QBS process has led to the selection of Woodard and Curran for facilities plan work is valid, the town is not required to conduct a new consultant procurement, and whereas engaging a firm less familiar with design of facility will require at least a 4-month delay in project commencement, jeopardize clean water grant funding, and could result in delays, additional change orders, increased construction costs, and other issues with the construction of the facility. Now therefore be it resolved in accordance with Chapter 5, Section 8, Paragraph D of the Enfield Town Charter, the Town Council does hereby determine that it is against the best interest of the town to require competitive bidding for construction administration, consulting, and engineering services related to the water pollution control facility upgrades, and be it further resolved that the town manager is authorized to execute an agreement with Woodard and Curran for such services subject to review and approval of the town attorney, prepared on March 5th, 2018 by the Department of Public Works.
So moved.
By Counselor Nolan, second by Counselor Falk. Counselor Denny, would you like to, for the record? Roll call, please.
Counselor
I
Muller.
want to make sure I give you the chance.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
4.
Counselor Arnone.
4.
Counselor Bosco.
4.
Counselor Sakala.
4.
Counselor Crisati.
4.
Counselor Davis.
4.
Counselor Denny.
Against.
Counselor Falk.
4.
Mayor Ludwig.
4.
There's 9 in favor, 1 against, and no abstentions.
Item 16, public communications. Anyone would like to speak before the town council at this time? Sir, you'll have 3 minutes for this period.
I appreciate it, sir. Thank you so much. Richard Waska,
Welcome.
37 Newlands,
Thanks for hanging in there.
Enfield. Just a couple of things, observations per se, and possibly something more that the town manager might add relative to the questions I raised earlier. I know that it was the intention of this council to have a proper evaluation occur sometime over the last 2 weeks at Barnard, which had not occurred. It's really unfortunate that did not occur, because I heard several people here say the smell was essentially gone. I believe Councilman Denny commented in that regard, which says we may have lost an opportunity to more readily identify a problem because we've mitigated it to some degree by the efforts, good efforts made, of course. But in the course of that and not having a more timely execution, simply raised as a point. I know there's been a substitute teacher in that particular area over this last week because of the staff member who has been unable to be there for health reasons. I'm wondering if anyone had an opportunity to interact with an individual, get a clean assessment on environment unchanged in that period of time, since it seems to be incredibly impactful against children. Oh, there's a 2-week period that has transpired. Further, I have no sense, and it's just, if someone could just answer it, not now, possibly, but at a later time. I have no sense of how, I'm a citizen of the town. How does the town council share information with the Board of Education, the superintendent of schools, and the town manager's office when we have an issue that touches all of them like this? Facilities maintenance, yet one more. And I thank you for the time.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it. Thank you very much. Jack.
Jack Sheridan, 7 Buchanan Road. I just came back on items J and K. I thought that we passed a referendum for the money for passing the sewer modifications. And I don't know why we need to vote on the monies now other than, I mean, is this additional money? Because I just don't understand the process then, I guess. But maybe if you could explain that to me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Bob?
Bob T. Katz, Woodgate Circle. One of the good things about Enfield, we got good roads. Good roads give you high speeds. Shaker Road's a 100-mile-an-hour road. People do it every day. The Maple, high-speed road. People do it every day. And we're going to take out the stoplight. Truck traffic, you're going to have a collision there that's going to be fatal. Fooling around with the stoplights, putting in stop signs. People don't stop for stop signs. In fact, Long Meadow took out all their stop signs and just put them in very selective areas. And let's get back to the beyond the roads. The roads in Massachusetts are terrible. Connecticut roads are very good. Of course, the politicians keep telling you how bad the roads are. We have to put tolls in because we don't have enough money to fix the roads. The roads and bridges are really very good and have high marks. But the politicians tell you how bad everything is. But it's going to get back to the parking lots and the schools in Enfield. They're bad. In fact, Sunday I did a survey. I went to Long Meadow, East Long Meadow, looked at all the school parking lots, looked at the parochial school parking lots. I looked at all our parking lots. And I got to say, our parking lots in our schools are pretty bad. The worst up till this afternoon was Enfield Street School. That looked like the B-52's carpet bombed Cambodia in 1965. The emergency gate was open, chained open. I spoke to someone on the council about this today. But at 5 o'clock, I went back. All the potholes were fixed. All the depressions were fixed. The emergency gate was locked. Oh, it's amazing. But the very worst parking lots in some of these towns are better than our best. So we have to have a program.
30 seconds. Just give me a 30-second warning.
Okay. We have to have a program that we're going to fix the worst things first and let go of some of the things. Going with this JFK, the stoplight on Enfield Street is really unnecessary spending. We have to spend our money, put a priority on our spending, and fix what needs to be fixed, not what we want fixed. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak for the council at this time? Hearing none, I declare public communications closed. Last item, item 819, I believe, public communications. Councilor communications. Councilor Arnone.
On a roll tonight. Everything communication-wise between us and the board, or it goes by charter, goes through town manager. So we have to bring it to the town manager, and then it gets out to Board of Ed from there. And then if we need to meet, he can arrange that for us. And what we did with Wood and Kern and Fuss and O'Neill is we just moved those companies from design phase to construction phase. They've already been in the process since 2013. It's all been vetted through DEEP. So it's just a technicality to move those over to construction, because now we're ready to roll on the improvements to the sewer plant. And if you hang around, we're going to put our other hats on, and we're going to be Water Pollution Control Authority, so you can listen in. Thanks.
I know we got some very patient folks, but unless this person is not telling me the truth, just so folks know, the Enfield High girls did win, and now they're moving to the semi. Beat the #1 team in the state. Titletown, that's what Enfield is. Titletown. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Motion by Councilor Muller, second by Councilor Danny. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Now, we are going to move, folks, this is to the Water Pollution Control Authority, so the town council. You want a couple minutes? So if folks okay, do I need a formal motion for recess, Suzanne, or no?
No, we haven't.
So it's 9 o'clock, those folks have been patient, 9:05. Okay, 5 minutes. It should be Friday night. It's going to be a neutral site. Special meeting of the Water Pollution Control Authority, Monday, March 7, 2018, 9:06. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Arnone.
Here.
Commissioner Bosco.
Here.
Commissioner Sakala.
Here.
Commissioner Crissati. Commissioner Davis. Oh, sorry. Commissioner Denny.
Here.
Commissioner Foe.
Here.
Chairman Ludwig.
Here.
Commissioner Muller.
Here.
Commissioner Suzak.
Here.
Commissioner Ungary.
Do we have a sheet?
We have 9 members present who are absent.
Item 2, approval of minutes, regular meeting, January 16, 2018. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Councilman Falk, second by Councilor Nolan. Any discussion on the minutes? Hearing none, by a show of hands, all those in favor? Those opposed? Abstention? 8 in favor, 1 abstention. Item 3, special guests. Now, I'm assuming they're going to present item discussion, or should we do here?
No, they'll present under items for
Okay,
discussion.
so we have no special guests under item 3. Item 4, any old business? None. Item 5, any new business? Look at that, we're flying. Item 6, items for discussion. For folks who've been very patient, please come forward. Item A, discussion, Water Pollution Control Authority Subcommittee.
Sure. Just for council's reference, and this is more for your edification and direction for staff, there has been some discussion away from the dais in a couple of venues where members of council, in particular, I think it was Councilor Arnone and Councilor Suzak, had talked about members of council being more aware exactly of what's going on with the wastewater treatment plant and the project that's upcoming and all of the very aspects of that project. Recognizing that not everyone on council may have the interest that Councilor Arnone and Councilor Suzak might have in this particular subject matter, but recognizing the importance of their request, it was suggested by staff that to leadership that the Joint Facilities Committee, at least the 4 members of council who sit on the Joint Facilities Committee, effectively become the Water Pollution Control Authority Subcommittee to review the issues and concerns and to kind of do the deeper dive with respect to all things wastewater in advance of, sorry, no pun intended, in advance of the full membership coming together to move on things such as contractor approval. Rates is something we're going to touch on briefly tonight that will need to come back. So that was really why we brought this up. We just wanted to make sure that this was the will of the authority in this instance to assign some of these issues to this committee. So that's the reason this is here.
I know we have no objections. I don't know if you guys.
Yeah, no objections either. And honestly, this is probably one of the things that we need to move forward in getting us more in tune with being authorities. So I think this is a phenomenal idea, and it's a step in the right direction, and I'm excited to do the dive.
we want to thank Councilor Muller, Deputy Mayor Suzak, Councilor Nolan, and Councilor Davis for being our experts at water pollution control. All right, so item B, we're going to move right on to Woodard and Curran rate study. First of all, thank you for being patient.
Go ahead. Yep.
For patient all night. Again, we tried to move this as expeditiously as we could.
No worries. Thank you.
Again, welcome, and the floor is yours.
Thank you. My name is Tom Schwartz. I'm a project manager at Woodard and Curran. Toby Feder is our financial expert at Woodard and Curran, and Shelby Boscheman is our project engineer. Recently promoted to PM, so she's. But the 3 of us here want to briefly, as the manager mentioned, discuss with you tonight what the wastewater rate and update you as to where we are. Particularly, we want to go quickly over 3 things: the history of the rates here in Enfield, the current finances, and get into where we want to go with the discussion for the rates coming up. So looking back a little bit in time, in 2013, meaning Toby here, was the chief architect of doing a full financial review of the utility, looking at the capital cost, operational cost, your debt service that's anticipated at the time. Part of the exercise, he did some benchmarking of Enfield versus nearby and like communities in the area. And most importantly, at the end of this, we were able to establish with you the sewer fee that switched you over from the ad valorem system, which you had up until that point in time. So looking at a quick time chart here, as I said, 2013, the sewer rate study was conducted and finalized. 2014, the following year, that was adopted. And in 2015, the $36 million referendum, which you've mentioned, was approved by the town. Following year from that, the WPCF design began with our company, and we've just finished that at the end of last year. And as mentioned, that the bids are being processed now. And in 2018, one of the important things that we need to engage with you folks is the rate review and recommendations going forward. So in 2013, the rate study that Toby put together, that we put together with the town, was put in place to cover, obviously, capital costs, operational costs, as well as to build up funds in an enterprise fund. Over the years, however, some issues have come up that have affected where we are with the finances currently with the sewer rate, or the sewer fund. It was planned this way, but it's worth noting that over the 5 years since that study or that rate has been adopted, there was no adjustment. So if you look at what could have been done at, say, a 2% raise, which is about the average CPI, that equates to about $100,000 per year in revenue that wasn't captured. Seasonal adjustments for summertime use, for those that don't have deduct meters, that accounts for about 7.5% of their volume for the 3 months that is in place. We figure that's about a $2,000 change in revenues as well. I'm sorry, $200,000 in, thank you, reduced revenue to the WPCA. The multi-house family adjustment is more minor, but still worth mentioning. That was we figure about $15,000. That is a reduced revenue from what we anticipated in 2013. And just in general, the water consumption pattern in the area has shifted, reduced. So you're selling less sewage. And that is another reduction of about $200,000 a year. So the total adds up to $565,000. That is in reduction from where we thought we'd be. Also worth noting, outstanding bills are quite high at the moment, $1.5 million. However, the town has recently enacted a lien process, so we don't anticipate that to increase. And in fact, we anticipate that'll rapidly decrease and hopefully go away for the most part. Okay, so recommendations for a rate adjustment. Currently, and you can probably see where this is going, currently the 2017, $4.8 million, the current rates have generated for the association, WPCA. We're projecting that by 2023, you're going to need to be bringing in about $8 million in revenue. Drivers for that are collection system improvements that you need to undertake, pump station improvements that are in the wings, and some higher costs at the WPCF for the improvements and the financing expenses associated. One of the things we're looking forward to engaging with you folks on is options for revenue enhancement. One is to increase the rate over a period of time, simple enough. Two is to offset some of that rate increase with a fixed charge. That would be a monthly or quarterly charge that would be levied on each bill regardless of the amount of water used. It's a common tool. Switch to a flat fee for residential. That would just be a yearly charge regardless of use. And that also is not uncommon. We did some benchmarking recently as to where you are now as a town relative to other communities in the area and or similar communities, all in Connecticut. Right now, the average residential user is around $264 per year for sewage fees. That's pretty close to the bottom of that list. Where we anticipate being in 2023 with having to get up to that $8 million revenue is probably in the 505, 510, or 515 annual amount of money. So that would move us up the list, obviously. Keep in mind that these numbers here are 2017 numbers. They're going to increase over the next 5 years as well. So we anticipate that, relative to these communities, you'll be probably in the middle of the pack. Okay, so quickly, the next steps update you folks tonight as to where we are, and we'd like to engage with the subcommittee that was mentioned earlier as soon as possible, March 15th, hopefully. We see, hopefully through that process by April, the WPCA, you'll be able to make rate recommendations and propose those by May 15th and hold a public hearing sometime in May or June in order to have the rate changes adopted by July 1st. That was it for my little presentation.
Thank you both for being patient. Commissioner Danny.
All right, first of all, I sat here in 2013, and you people told us that we need to do a rate increase for 5 years, that this would take care of all of it.
Mm-hmm.
Out of your mouth tonight, you said we should have been updating this, and why weren't we informed that we should have been updating this in year 2, 3, 4, and 5, and now we're in a hole. Now we're going to go to the taxpayers and say, okay, now we're going to charge everybody to get back into thing, and who looks the worst? Us who are sitting here. When we hired you people to keep an eye on this, and you, out of your mouths, I heard, and all of these people heard, we're all set for 5 years and we don't have to do a rate increase. But you didn't take into consideration that people are now conserving water because they're paying for it more, because they see it. You didn't take into consideration all the other items of deduct meters and et cetera, et cetera. But you never advised us in year 2014, 15, 16, 17 that we should have started this rate increase, because we could have started it in. Now all of a sudden we're going to hit them in their pocket like we're robbing them again. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Denny. Councilor Davis.
I have a question on, because we get our bill quarterly. Like, how much would we actually save and gain by doing a bill once a year instead of paying postage and all that 4 times a year, and we do it once a year with like a 2-payment thing on it?
You are currently basically contracting out for that service, the bill issuance and bill collection. It would be difficult for me to tell you exactly what the savings would be, but in truth, I believe that contract is to the tune of $150,000 a year. Is that correct, Brian? And saving of the postage on, so you have around 15,000 customers, so you would be saving 45,000 times a postage rate, plus whatever the processing fees would be. I suspect it's not going to save you as much as you might think. In fact, many communities have been transitioning over to monthly billing to prevent sort of the sticker shock associated with extended billing periods.
I'm just saying, because sometimes I get a $20 bill. And I don't write many checks because everything's online.
Right.
So it's like I have to remember, and then I get that $something late fee because I didn't send my check. And I'm like, for $20, or my first one that was 30-something cents, that was less than what the postage was to send me the bill.
Right.
So I'm just,
Sure. So
it's still savings, even if it's $50,000 a year. It's still less out of the taxpayer's pocket in the long run.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's all.
Deputy Mayor Suzak.
When we first went to this, we listened to the people, a lot of the changes we made, but there was one thing that I requested that I never got. And it always seemed to me that the people who were paying minimum were never paying enough. I know myself, cost of my home, what is assessed at, what I was paying was well over $200, and I'm now paying $100. I'm not the only person that this is happening to. I mean, I asked it I guess I framed it because I felt that this sewer usage was putting higher bills in younger families' homes, and the people who were minimum use people weren't paying enough to support the system. And for me, it's like there's that one component that, it's the processing of the water down or the waste down at the plant, but there's also the component of getting it there. And the further you live away from it, the more infrastructure is required to get your water and your waste down to the plant. So that being said, I think about this a lot that, Tom went through the effort of, going to South Windsor, finding out they're, what, 351?
Around 350 to 360, somewhere around
A year, flat fee. So for a house my size in South Windsor, I'd be paying $350, and I'm paying $100 here in Enfield. Again, I'm getting the bargain of my lifetime, but the town's not running properly. And it's really frustrating because all of us are sitting up here and we have to make the town run properly. And I don't know how we do it without scaring everybody half to death. But I think the bills have to go up. We have to support this. It's one of the most important things we do, right, Joey?
You'll always pay your plumber.
That's right. So I'll be in favor of a rate increase. I knew it was coming from day one, but we got to make it so that people can live with it and we can bring it in gradually. Thanks.
Councilor Arnone.
So if you looked at all our fees, looked at our hookup fee, at our, even our septic fees, down to any other fees that are possible to, to help offset some of this, even benefit assessments, anything we can think of anywhere. Could you bring that forward to us too?
We could take a look at some of those things, certainly. I think there was fairly broad agreement the last time that they didn't want to do benefits assessments or increase charges due to the interest of folks who are, had subdivided properties already. That said, obviously, if you want to look at them now, everything's on the table.
Yeah, we have a pretty much new council here, and I think start fresh with us, so if we don't like it, we'll just knock it out anywhere. Absolutely. I should say, not council, but water pollution control authorities. So, yeah, if you could give us anything and everything, and really we could use some refreshers up here, too, with Absolutely. A lot of the members. So just don't be afraid to bring it forward, and every answer is a good one.
Well, I think just to Commissioner Susak's comment, as well as yours, Commissioner Arnone, I think a component of the fix on this is going to end up being fixed charges applied on a quarterly basis to the bills. And that will help to level the playing field, so to speak, because as you pointed out, Commissioner Susak, correctly, there are some folks paying incredibly low sewer bills here based upon some of the policies that were adopted after the rate study went into force. That, in truth, some of those we didn't find out about until within the last 3 or 4 months as we began looking at this and getting the model in shape to basically support decision-making, where we'll be able to tell you, well, if we do fixed charges of X per quarter, here's what the rates would need to do. If we apply a betterment assessment and actually change a revenue stream based on that, here's what happens with your rates. The tool that we've brought up to speed now has the first full 3 years worth of volumetric billing data built into it that allows us to pretty accurately project, in my estimation, what your revenue is going to look like under different volumetric rates. That was something back in 2013 we were unable to get on a per account basis out of Hazardville. All we got out of the Hazardville Water Company then, although they've been very helpful recently, but at that time all we got was basically the number of the gallons they sold in each year, and we had to make some pretty aggressive estimations of how different water accounts were buying their water. And then, as Tom had alluded to, so the original rate structure was set up to basically generate around $5.3 million per year. And this last year, fiscal 17, it generated 4.8. And the difference there is exactly what Tom was alluding to. It's the adoption of the summer adjustment policy, which is probably $150,000 to $200,000 a year. That was never envisioned in the rates, nor as part of our original rate estimate. The town came back to us afterwards and said, can we do this? And because your operation costs in the first couple of years were below the overall revenue generation that we expected, the answer was yes, we could. And I think sort of the final part is, my understanding from conversations over the years has simply been that, well, we said we were going to keep them even for 5 years. We were going to keep them, we're going to keep our word on that, and then we'll adjust them when we get there. And that's the process that we're going through. The one final point that I would definitely hit heavily that Tom mentioned is you guys have built up a fairly large unpaid bill balance that, at least for the last 6 months, has thankfully stopped growing. Hopefully the institution of liens to ensure bill collection will help bring that down. Because if you were to have collected all that money, the WPCA would be in a much better fiscal position. It's $1.5 million. It's a lot of money that has been billed for services provided, but payment has not been remitted.
So that's huge right there. Now, normal wastewater treatment boards and committees have their own, they'll get their own attorneys to chase these down. And for $1.4 million,
$1.54 as of the end of
$1.54 million.
17.
It's in our best interest to, even if it's on a contractual basis, to get somebody in here that'll make sure those, not only the liens are there, but we really put the foot down on collection. And it's just unacceptable.
Yeah, I will say this, liens are usually, liens are very effective as far as a tool of making ensuring collections, simply because most people have a mortgage, and the first person to notice a lien going on a property is the guy who holds the note, and he's going to pay the full amount, and then he's going to assess it onto their monthly add-on for taxes and insurance and things along those lines.
Thank you. I'm good.
Brian, then you, Gina. Go ahead, Brian. Gina, then you.
Commissioner, just to your point, we did wait, I believe it was 36 months to give folks an opportunity to get adjusted to the non-valorum method of payment. And then the finance director and his staff did begin working with a vendor to reach out and begin leaning these properties. So we are going through, if we have not done them all, they were being phased. If we have not done them all, they will be all noticed and leaned very shortly. So we are going through that process.
It's our responsibility when we put these hats on. It's just, each and every one of us responsibility that money gets paid, just like when we get the hats for the council. So,
Right. So I did want you to know we are pursuing that avenue to recoup that revenue.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sakala.
Thank you. Good. I was going to mention that I really think that we need to figure out how we're going to get some of that 1.5 million. I just want to echo Commissioner Denny. We're not experts. We're volunteers. There's a few of us that know about WPC and all that stuff up here. Most of us don't. So when we hire the experts, we're going to lean on your information and your guidance. And I kind of feel like we were given little to no warning, and now we are blindsided with this. And maybe that's some on us, because maybe we weren't doing enough due diligence and asking for enough information. But, I feel like if we were this short, you should have been here 6 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago, 3 years ago, because now we, as the volunteers, have to hear it from the taxpayers, because we weren't, in my opinion, given as much warning, as much information as we should have been by the experts that we hired.
Thank you. Commissioner Bosco.
I know we at Salisbury Beach have a flat fee. Everybody pays a flat fee. Doesn't matter how many meters you have. You pay by how many units are in the building. Or, if you have a multi-tenant building, it's just so many units and that's it. But if we do something like that, we should be able to bring down, I would hope we should be able to bring down some of the rates for some of the people. And a few other people are going to be paying a little more, but I'm sure there's got to be some number in there that could be fair. I just don't like the idea at all of raising rates right now, especially with everything we're in, and I don't know how people are going to make ends meet, but I think the fairest way to do it would be a flat fee. And Brian, can we, instead of paying $150,000 a year to an outside contractor, can we just bill it twice a year and put them onto our tax bills? And then this way, we don't have to pay outside, or because it's a separate commission and completely separate from the taxes, if we use our own tax department to send a bill out?
So there are a couple of different aspects of the contract that we have with the vendor who helps provide that service. So yes, we can take any task on and internalize it, but can we do so cost effectively compared to the contract? That I cannot answer for you.
Well, I guess the question is, if we say it's going to be X amount of money for everybody, there really isn't much paperwork other than getting the money in and accounting for it. Because right now, we have to have someone collect data. There won't be any data to collect anymore. We won't need anyone to do any figuring because it's going to be X amount of money. So, I think our computer should be automatically hit print bill, and each bill comes out with the same thing. And no matter what, the tax department has to get the money, and they still have to deposit it. So I don't know how it comes in, but I think it would be that would be a savings that we could actually pass on if we can get rid of the vendor that does the other part. And if we do need more help to do it, it's still going to make it better in the office to get another person for the time that we're not just doing bills for the other kinds of chores that we need done.
So,
I'd rather spend the money on our help than give it to somebody else.
So on the assumption, the reference that you gave with respect to your other property, that assumes that we have an accurate meter count and that you're billing per meter or you're billing per
we pay per unit. So we have 7 units down there, and we pay 7 sewer bills for that property.
So, right. So there has to be some additional information.
And they're $800 a year.
Okay. So we would have to be able to acquire some additional information because there has to be an ability for us to provide equitable distribution of the expense with respect to the end user. So, how would the town then address if we don't have meter size, and then how would you address a large volume user? I mean, are they going to pay the same rate that a single family home with a 5/8 inch meter would pay?
Well, I know this is just residential, so how we handle the commercial may be a different thing, but the residential, it's pretty simple. You pay that much money, it's $800 a year. You pay for the pleasure of being able to go to the toilet and flush it.
I agree. I don't disagree with the premise, but it's not just the residential user that we have to consider. We have to consider how to extrapolate what the residential user pays. And you've heard them talk about the flat fee. I think we would all be in agreement that the flat fixed fee would be the easiest method, I think, for everyone to respond to, both with respect to how we calculate for the resident and their ability to pay. And having that known quality, but to take it beyond that still requires some additional steps. And so we've had the discussion about moving to that fixed rate, moving to that flat fee. Now, how we get there and the complications beyond the residential user, that's something that we need to figure out. But to your point, everything being equal, yes, that is the possibility to do, but we have to figure out what it's going to take to get there and what that would look like.
I believe if we split commercial from residential and have a billing company that does our commercial and somebody else that, and we do our own residential, so.
But again, those are all good ideas, but without talking to the vendor, without having that discussion, is there do we still get the economy of scale with 50% fewer accounts? We don't know that, so we have to get through that.
Commissioner Falk.
At first, I was kind of hesitant about the flat fee, only because I have a lawn sprinkler system, and I put in a deduct meter and go through the process, and my monthly bill is actually relatively low because most of the water I use goes to the grass. But to simplify the process, the flat fee sounds good. If we could come up with some equitable way of figuring out being fair to each user, each taxpayer, I could buy into that. I know now you have a separate line item on the tax bill for the fire departments, and how is that handled, and could this be handled the same way?
So, you mean with respect to if it was a flat fee, could we just include it on?
On your tax bill as a line item, just like the fire department?
I don't see any reason why, assuming the vendor is cooperative, I don't see any reason why we wouldn't simply supply them the number and they add that as a print line to the bill. But again, we have to get there from here, and we're not, I mean, that's not a jump that we're going to make tomorrow.
No.
Right.
And then we get back to what Liz was saying. You need 2 payments, one in July and one in January, which would make it a lot easier than quarterly or monthly or whatever. And if it's not paid, you might find out sooner, I'm not sure, or have a better way of identifying it and collecting it if it's on that tax bill versus a separate bill over here. I might be wrong, but that tax bill is very effective, and I don't know what our current collection rate is, 97% or something like that. It's pretty good. And if we're, millions of dollars in the hole of non-payment on this, putting it on the tax bill might be a better way of capturing it as opposed to this separate method, separate billing. Just a thought. Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor, Commissioner Suzak.
I guess I have a question on capacity. So the new plant will have a lot of capacity. So there's always more than one way to get revenue in. Could we expand our footprint to neighboring areas and take in more water and that need to be processed? Would this be efficient, or would this be a larger burden on our infrastructure?
So economically speaking, obviously, bringing in alternative users from the surrounding areas and currently areas that are not served by the wastewater treatment plant, as long as you don't need to further expand your capacity, is obviously a very good thing from the standpoint of economic health of the utility. And certainly, it's also a very good thing from the standpoint of minimizing rate increases for folks here in town.
Council would be really worried if 20% of our tax revenue didn't come in. I mean, that's a huge number, because you said we got, what, 4.8 was what it's supposed to bring in?
Sure. So the revenue overall that the model or your existing rates was intended to generate started out as around $5.3 million per year. Over the past basically 4.5 fiscal cycles, the amount of unpaid bills of that amount is now around $1.54 million. So that's probably 6% of overall revenues over that time period.
It's a large amount, large percentage.
It is.
Councilor No.
All right, so this needs to be said tonight, and I'm going to say it because I say it all the time with this, the problem with this commission. For 5 years, if we've met 10 times, and anything over 10 minutes, it sits on no one else's shoulders but ours. They come to us tonight and say something that happened over the last 5 years. Why do they have to come and tell us this? We're a commission. We should be here under our own town ordinance. We are supposed to be preparing the water pollution control budget. We are, the authority. And if we knew what the budget was for 5 years, we wouldn't be where we are today. So, bad on us. And I'm going to tell you, staff's got to take some hit for this too, not just the engineers. Why haven't they said for the last 5 years gradually we're in the hole $1.5 million until tonight? So everybody here is going to have to take a little shot upside the head for this. And if we're really going to function in the future, we need to meet more. We need to do what our own statute tells us to do our budgets. We need to spend more time.
In staff's defense, I have been asked to come in the past couple of years and take a look at things on a cursory basis. And indeed, it was obvious that the rates were producing less than intended because some of the policies that the town adopted over the course of that 5-year period. So I would say that the folks working at WPCA, they definitely have been, they've been aware and bringing us in to get our opinion on whether it's okay. I mean, the fact of the matter is, the 5.3 was probably a little more than you needed in the initial 5-year period. The challenge is going to be starting next year, you're going to have much greater line item spending on a capital basis, and the $36 million bond that's been approved, you're going to start to be paying debt service on that. So really the challenge is going from where we are and have been over the last 4 or 5 years to where we're going to be 5 years from now, because the change has not been that dramatic over the course of the past 4 years. So we aren't significantly above where we intended. And, it's not as if the WPCA already owed the town a fair amount on the general fund when we went away from the ad valorem amount,
We
right?
sure did.
They owed $3.6 million, $3.7 million at that time. Some of that has been repaid. So the WPCA in the last 4 years has not been a black hole of money. We have a pot that's been uncollected, right? And that's an asset of the WPC. But it's not as if we've been spending $1 million more every year than we've been bringing in revenues.
But what I'm saying is they don't need to call you in, they need to come to this authority first. And that's the way it works in any other authority, any other place. It's ultimately our responsibility of everything, the frustrations you just heard from this committee right now, those frustrations are ours. And that's all I'm saying is those things should be brought to us, not 10-minute meetings, twice a year. We need to meet more, and we need to do a better job at it. And we need to do what our own ordinance tells us to do. We need to do our budget. And that's my soapbox today. Sorry, folks.
No.
Thanks.
Just 2 quick questions. So the rate study, what does that take into account for what the state, so with the prison, does that have any effect on the rates, or is that just on the referendum money? So what are we assuming? And again, I know they've been, I think, up front that they're just doing work at those buildings, and they're going to be used within a few years, if not, near future. So hopefully, whatever they're negotiating with us, they're not getting away with now that they have low volume because they're not using them. That volume's coming back in a pretty near future.
So WPC sent a letter to them informing them of the expected obligation under the long-term supply agreement, which I believe, and I may be incorrect on this, but I believe the expectation is for 12% of the overall capital spending at the plant is going to be reimbursed by the Bureau of Prisons.
I think we're at 10 right now.
It's at 10? Okay.
So we have it in writing?
You have a signed contract, but I don't believe we have it in writing that they intend to comply with that expectation.
So that's got to be part of this, right? It has to be part of this. So we have to get in writing. And if they get invited to, maybe they get invited to this meeting, to a water pollution meeting? So can we invite the prison folks? I mean, we can't assume we're going to get that money. We don't, if we're already in a hole. And you brought the point up, so we have debt service. So so before any rate increase or whatever it may be, we need to understand a rough idea, even if it's rough, what the next 5 to 10 years for debt service is. Because if we're going to ask people for more money, we can't ignore the fact that what you just said, that we're going to have debt service.
Yep.
That's got to play into this, and this has got to be a 5 to 10 year plan. Rate plan. And also the other point, if we are actually improving the plant, at some point, hopefully we get efficiencies out of improving the plant. And I'm assuming we can estimate that a little bit in years. I mean, I understand you can't be exact, but some estimations of efficiency should be built into that. And that's the point of doing
yes,
it. Yes,
we have some guidance on that. I mean, the real challenge is you're going to be doing additional treatment there. So it's not as if we're going to build an expensive plant and it's going to now be cheaper to run. You're going to be doing more treatment.
I think it's at least you know what you're buying. So people understand what they're purchasing.
Right.
That's the thing. I don't think most folks understand what we've purchased. And I think that's the problem. I don't want to, I know you guys have been everyone's been articulate about it, but I think that's the point.
Yep.
And if we don't understand the debt service, it doesn't matter what we do for a flat fee. We're going to be back here in 3 years, and say, oh, by the way, we need another $500.
Absolutely. So just to be clear, Commissioner Ludwig, basically the rate model itself combines three primary things. So in the sort of two-step dance, you might say, of rate setting.
Right.
The first step is basically figuring out how much money we need and when we need it.
Right.
And that's a combination of operational costs, debt service, and basically line item capital spending. And those three things are all in the model right now. We can project those, I think, quite accurately for the next 5 years. Then the question really becomes the second step of the rate setting dance is how are we going to divide this up equitably between all of the ratepayers?
And my only suggestion is that we make sure that, I'm sorry, I don't know how this is going to sound, but we're not letting the prison system off the hook here. Okay, we're not. They're not going to be away because their volume's been down the last couple of years. And then, because they're going to be actually have prisoners back in those once whatever they're doing to whatever they're doing, right. And I just want to make sure that that's clear. So if they have to come before us, then I want that out of this meeting, that we have whatever the meeting will be, out of folks wanted that they're invited here. Sorry, go ahead, sir.
Kevin Flood, Fuss and O'Neill. I've been in contact with the Department of Corrections on behalf of the town for what's been going on. We had a meeting on the 26th of February with them, and at that point, based on the reduced flows,
that's the problem.
Okay, so
sorry.
Based on the reduced flows at this point, we talked about a 10% contribution based on the overall costs that we would have. And those overall costs would be the base bid of the bids we received.
Yeah, understand.
The bid alternates that we're going to accept or utilize as part of the overall improvement. And then we'd also have to point out that any change orders that occur during the project also get captured at that point in time.
So then, sorry, any contract can be amended. So say we base it on a flow that's less over the last couple of years. So then let's say 2021, they've done the changes, whatever they're doing to the facilities, and now they're back at full capacity or full, I hate to use the word staff, but for fully staffed for those buildings. We can open up that contract.
I believe that's what we talked about. In my response to them after our meeting on the 26th, I said, listen, at some point we're going to need to get the town attorney from Enfield. We're going to need to get the DOC, council to get involved, because as part of the overall memorandum of understanding or agreement, we're going to have some sort of line item, if you will, that does capture that over the entire 20-year period of when the plant gets upgraded and then remains, with this cost. If there is a change in flow and it's considerable, I think that reopens up the negotiations so that you're allowed to capture more contribution from them.
So here's again, I agree with you, but unless they put in writing, they're not going to, in the near, say, next 10 years, they're not going to put prisoners back in those buildings. Why can't we go back 3 years ago when they add the full, so whatever group, I'm sorry, so say there's 1,000 prisoners in those buildings.
Right. And
the flow was X. Well, now we have 200. I know they want to use that flow because it makes sense because it benefits them.
Right.
Why aren't I'm assuming we have a position to negotiate, we're going back to that 1,000. And my recommendation is we go back to that 1,000. Because they're going to, unless they put in writing and say we're not going to use those buildings, we're going to be on the hook for money. You know what I mean? And so
right now,
this is the chance where we can't.
Yeah, no, and it's a significant amount of money.
I agree.
It's $2.5 million, let's say.
And it's interesting
roughly.
Timing that they're remodeling certain prisons when we need some upgrades at the building.
We've asked them, based on the flows that they've had in January of 18, the flows have gone down from somewhere in the 550,000 gallons per day range to,
I saw some,
to just about 500, all right? So there's been a 10% reduction in flows, but I agree with you.
But they're remodeling. They're not actually closed. That's two big words. They're not closing, they're remodeling.
Right. The other thing that you need to point out is, oh, by the way, you really need to do this not on a 30-day average. You need to do it on a running average over an entire year, because as you're aware, in the summertime it gets awfully warm, and in the prisons they use a lot more water when it gets warm because they take more showers.
That's a great point, yeah.
And we've talked to them about that. There's anywhere from 2 to 4% increase in flows over the summer months, just based on the population that's there now. As you said, if there's an increase in the population over the next 5 years, I do feel that it's the town's right, if not, their need, to go back and say, hey, we still need to negotiate and open up the the costs here a little bit in order to make sure that you guys get paid in whole, because they're going to continue to use as much water, up to 800 and something thousand gallons a day, which is, the agreement that's in place, and they can go that high.
Right.
And if it does go that high, which we don't hope, you'll have to reopen the negotiations.
I mean, again, I know some tough questions. Appreciate you being patient. Thank you for coming up and speak before us, but I agree with our other commissioners that you'll be seeing a lot more of us.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Any items for miscellaneous? Hearing none, motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Counselor Davis, second by Commissioner Davis, Commissioner, Deputy Commissioner Suzak. All those in favor?
It's just
I got to make sure I get the language.
no deputies.
I know where it is, too.